It's the most incredible feeling to be here. This is live.
Live.
WildEarth takes you on daily intimate experiences in nature live.
This is a very, very different adventure, charged with emotion.
Join expert guides as they search for Africa's most iconic animals.
How awesome is this? She's coming right past our vehicle. Take a closer look here.
Oh, careful. Oh, no.
Ask your host questions and have them answered in real time. Join us live every day on WildEarth. This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon and welcome in the Masai Mara of Kenya. We have giraffes that are resting here. My name is Tim and welcome aboard to your very own safari live from the African wilderness. Good afternoon everyone and a warm welcome to you here in the Masai Mara of Kenya. We have giraffes that are resting. It's hot right now. My name is Tim and behind camera we have Big James. It's warm enough now that these giraffes are resting. It's about 28 degrees Celsius, about 83 degrees Fahrenheit. So giraffes will be feeding or moving around during the cooler parts of the day, and at midday or in the afternoon like this, they either stand up or sit down as a way of cooling themselves or maybe resting. Sometimes you might be it on their body, which we call it sometimes pillowing, when we see them resting their heads on their necks. So some of them here are busy feeding while these ones are resting. And during that time is when we reckon that they always sleep. And that can be taken into intervals of about, let's say, 1 minute or 2 minutes, and then carry on. We have about 12 giraffes here. Some are in the bushes and some are in the open. And as you can see, some of them are looking at different direction. As when they're resting like this, they also watch over for predators, because this area is inhabited by lions. We have the river pride who lives around here, and so these giraffes are also cautious when they're resting like this. Look at those two resting side by side. I'm going to stick here for a while because this seems to be a nice sighting here as I take you over to another live location. Good afternoon to Tswalu Kalahari. Tim, a very nice one there with giraffes. Sticking with giraffes, we are actually under a tree here where a bird has actually excavated a little of a hole. My name here is Obakeng, and behind the camera we've got Dave. Hello. I'm going to be explaining a little bit about what has happened here with the digging here. So if you look, I would denote note the perks of a beak of a bird that would do this. And the first thing that would come to one's mind is a bird like an oxpecker just carving there and making actually a nest for themselves. So they would use that bill and keep perking, and it acts almost like a impact drill. If you look at the skull, or the bill and the skull formation of these birds, it's such a unique formation in the sense that the bill and their skull itself has a U formation, kind of a cartilage or a bone that makes it give the bird more of a perk or of an impact as they knock on hard substances like that. And it's also to make sure that when the bird does that, it doesn't get a concussion themselves. But look at those details as to how it's been dug. And also very important, not only would these little holes made in the tree serve as nests just for the particular bird that has done that, you get other species that would benefit from little holes like this. Things like your snakes that would use a nest that has that is out of commission like there. You get other birds, things like your acacia pied barbets, that they would use that. Crested barbets also would use that. So there's quite a few other birds that would actually benefit from these birds making these holes through here. So just wanted to point out a few. I mean, you can see they've started on this one, and this is an older one than the first one we were showing, and obviously there's no activity, they don't use this anymore. But if we come over this side, David, you can see this one is much fresher, and there's even evidence of it still living there. Look at the little feather at the top there to show that it actually comes in and goes out, and that's just one of the signs these birds live. So for now, I'm gonna leave you folks, continue with the safari and see what else we can find for the afternoon. Hopefully still on the motto that we had this morning, paws, jaws and claws. Let's see, and over to the next beautiful property in Africa.
Well, we did have some ground hornbills, but alas, they have gone behind a bush, so I'm going to try and see if I can get them now. This is typical when it comes to birds and live wildlife filmmaking. My name's Tristan. On camera, I've got Theo this afternoon, and we're going to try and see if we can get these two birds. I'll stop from here because they're quite far away. They're looking for shade more than anything else. There you can see them there. It's a male and female pair that is together. Now, there are birds that are nesting at the moment, so it's possible that these guys have already got a nest somewhere in this area, and they're just out foraging. And it's been fascinating watching them so far this afternoon because they've gotten stuck into a whole bunch of rhino dung that they found, and there were dung beetles all over the rhino dung, and between the two of them they must have easily put away 30 dung beetles in the space of 3-4 minutes. They were just literally picking them up and throwing them into their mouths, which was absolutely amazing. Now you might be wondering how we know whether it's a male or female. With these adult ground hornbills, if you look at the neck area, there is this red section, but underneath the beak on a female, you'll find that it has a kind of violet purple sort of section underneath that beak, whereas the male's just stays bright red. So I think this one is difficult to see because of how far away it is at the moment and because it's behind 400 million sticks. But I think this is the female that walked off here. It's gotten a bit confusing because they've kind of gone back and forth a little bit, so I've lost which one was which, but I think that's the one with a little bit of purple underneath the beak. And it seems like the male is still trying to woo her. He's been running up and down with all kinds of little insects and things to try and show her. I'm going to just try one more time to get a better view. There's a little open clearing here that we can potentially see if we can get them. Let's just have one last look. probably, there we go. So actually, I think this is the female that is in the shade. I don't know, you guys will be able to, at home, will be able to see better than I can. But really cool to see them. They're obviously a bird that's highly endangered these days, not that many of them left. So we'll try to see if we can get a nicer view, try and see if they come a little bit closer, and see if they continue to forage and find interesting things to eat.
Jumbo everyone, and another very good afternoon. Nice and hot here, and my first animal of the day is the largest also, African elephant. And I have come across these beauties. They're just coming out of the bushes. Looks like they have a mission this afternoon to go out towards the escarpment for different kind of feed, because it's very early to leave the marsh. But who am I to say anything? They can do what they want. It looks like they are enjoying the grass as they head out quite nice and slowly. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Isaac, and on camera I have Bungei. Our mission today is to look for elephants. We have come across them, and then later on I'm going to go look for that tiny little cub. Hopefully we can see it and see what it's doing. Surprisingly, it went into that bush this morning, and then the mother came out again and walked back to where it was very early this morning. So I'll be going back there later. Yes, African elephant. One of the largest, very calm, very intelligent, and very, very dangerous. This is an animal that is feared a lot here by the local people. Many people think that the lion and the buffalo is feared more than any other animal, but to the local tribe, the Maasai people, this is the animal they fear. The main reason is there is no big tree enough for you to climb to get away from it. And also it can run very, very fast. Recently, there has been recordings of elephants giving birth to twin. And actually, there is a female at the moment with two twins in one of our parks in Kenya called Amboseli, just at the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro. So it is evident they give twins now, and they live the longest among some of the large mammals, up to 70 years. Yeah, they have 28 sets of teeth. Those two tusks are modified upper canisials, and they are used for, fighting, for defense, for debarking trees, for digging minerals in soils, and also, sometimes even making paths in huge bushes. They can open up a bush to go through. Elephants, are constantly eating up to 1/4 ton of grass each day, and that's why they're always on the move. This time of the year, we have seen quite a good number of births or young ones, which means it is a very good year, and it was well timed because there is plenty of grass and shrub. Remember to talk to us, #WildEarth. Questions and comments are really welcome. It's nice and beautiful this afternoon, quite sunny. It's gonna cool down later, and we're gonna try and reposition now because they have moved out of our sight. It's quite a good, a very big herd. If Bungei will share that with you, you will see how big it is. It's just that it has been fragmented, into small herds. It is typical of elephants to do that. Once, every couple of months they'll come together, either related sisters. Well, enjoy that frame while, we take you to another location.
Good afternoon and welcome to andBeyond in Ngala. My name is Dan, and behind the camera we've got Odie. So this afternoon, the weather has warmed up quite significantly since this morning. And what I'm doing is I'm particularly hanging around in this area looking for leopards at the beginning of this afternoon's drive. There's some beautiful marula trees around here, lots of shade, really good place for animals to hang, or leopards to hang their carcasses. And then as it starts to cool down, I'm probably going to head back towards the Birmingham Pride, or where we left them this morning, to try and see what kind of drama is going to unfold there. Particularly with this morning sounding like there were lions roaring here in the west, and the Birmingham or the Ross males replying at about 8:30, once it had already warmed up quite significantly, is setting up for quite an interesting scene this afternoon. So if we don't come right with any leopards in the first couple of hours of drive, I'll be heading straight towards there, and hopefully we can see. I'm going to send you for now.
So welcome back to the Mara, where our giraffes are starting to be mobile, but one is showing that concern that she wants to keep on moving, while some of the bulls are reluctant, some of them are just busy grazing. So giraffes are non-territorial. Each herd has a home range with a very indefinite border. Sometimes their location changes through time and time, depending on availability of browsing areas. So sometimes they'll make long journeys into new areas, but will always return to these specific browsing areas once in a while. But the females, sometimes when they have calves, they will isolate themselves and go to calving grounds. These calving grounds sometimes are bushes, sometimes are very, very open, because giraffes will tend to leave their young ones sometimes for even up to 4 or 5 hours, and then they'll come back to nurse them. So we have a mixture here. We have young bulls, young females, and of course the older and mature. But the big old bulls, they sometimes walk alone. They only interact with this such herd once in a while to come and analyze if some of them might be in season or not. So these home ranges, sometimes they don't overlap. They always follow the same path back and back. So because of the marsh here, they all like coming here. Way over in the distance, I can see elephant and some antelopes. So this means that it's a good place where they can come for water. And also these bushes that grow around here supply them with the good nutrients that they might need. And they also have adequate water, enough water to this giraffe. It's a very, very nice area because you look at the browsing level of those trees. So these giraffes have a 360-degree angle to watch over predators. They're very selective when it comes to feeding. So sometimes you find they'll walk from one bush to another. I'm still going to hang around here and watch these giraffes and see. It's always nice to watch them walking as I take you over to another live location.
Well, as much as I love watching giraffes walking, watching birds of prey feeding, it's also quite interesting too. So from ground hornbills who were eating dung beetles to a pale form Wahlberg's eagle, which has got some sort of a kill, but I can't really work out what it is as yet. There's a squirrel that's alarm calling, which is, par for the course when an eagle is sitting on a branch fairly close by. But it could be a squirrel or it could be a bird. It looks like there might be a leg sticking out there that is bird-like. These guys mostly hunt birds. They'll hunt, anything from quellias, small little quellias, all the way up to francolins, even sometimes something as big as a guinea fowl. And judging by the length of that foot, I would expect that maybe to be a francolin, which would be my call. It's definitely a bird, whatever it is, now that the foot has been raised. And it doesn't look all that fresh. It looks like it's already eaten quite a lot of it. If you look at the crop on the chest area, how that's starting to swell. As well as the fact that it's pulling off little bits of bones now. There's no feathers that we can see. So it looks as though this carcass has been well plucked already, and it's already kind of into the sort of last bits of it. But you can see how they use that recurved beak that is so typical of predatory birds to be able to tear off chunks of flesh. So the feet act as basically a stabilizer for that kill, and they just stand on it, and then that beak with the sharp point is able to dig into the meat, and then from there they grip it and they pull these kind of little strips off and feed like that. Now a lot of that you see there, so the bones of maybe the sort of spine and skull might be a little bit big if it's a big francolin for a bird like this. Often you find those little pieces get dropped to the bottom, but wings and all the small little rib bones, those will all be small enough for a bird the size of a Wahlberg's eagle to be able to eat. But it's been a good afternoon for birds so far. It's, seeing ground hornbills is always special, and these Wahlberg's eagles, we see a lot of them in the summer months, particularly because we know where the nests are for the two pairs. This is the pair at Twin Dams, so in the Mulawati we've got two nesting pairs. One is up close to the camp, and the other one is further south towards Twin Dams, and this is the sort of southern pair, and they've been here ever since I've been at Djuma. We've seen them every year come back to the exact same nest, which is kind of opposite of where this bird is at the moment. So this bird is on the eastern side of the riverbed, and the nest is on the western side, and I can hear the other one was calling just now from the nest area, so they both are around. So they are. Wahlberg's eagles, particularly the pale form, has got to be one of the prettiest birds of prey that we get out here. They get this beautiful kind of white, creamy coloured head that starts to fleck off into these dark sort of wings. They're very, very pretty birds. And then they've got those feathered legs and then the yellow beak. So they really are a beautiful bird of prey. And because they are returning to the same place every year, and it's a kind of an area where we drive a lot, these birds have become very, very, very relaxed. You're finding, see, it's eating the foot. You see that? I was saying now that the foot might be a little bit big, so you see how it put it back down and stripped off the meat, and then I wonder if it's going to drop that leg. It'll be interesting to see if it actually tries to eat it or if that leg just gets dropped down. Let's see. It's got it. Here we go. It's trying to get it right. It's a bit macabre, isn't it, watching the kind of clawed... No, the whole leg went down. Oh, that can't be comfortable. Especially if it's a francolin. Francolins have big claws on them. And they've got that big sharp spur. A lot of them have it. So it can't be a comfortable thing to swallow at all. It's almost like swallowing a fork for us as humans, which I don't think would go down very well. Anyway, seagull doesn't seem to be too perturbed by it. But as I was saying, they because they come back every year, they've become so relaxed, these birds, that we get to be able to see the behavior like this. So often we can get quite close to these Wahlberg's eagles, just because they're used to the cars coming back and forth. They know that we're not here to chase them or anything like that, and we never disrupt their nesting area, and so they're quite happy for us to be around. It's a pity it's silhouetted a little bit. Unfortunately, it's against the light more than than the light is on it. But it would have been nice to be able to see those beautiful colours. Anyway, we'll probably leave this bird to carry on eating its delayed lunch or afternoon tea, and go and try and see what else we can find.
And beautiful, warm, sun's up, and 31 degrees today, 88 Fahrenheit. It's kind of like sun up. And my name is Andrew again. On camera, I have Morgan. So this is the plan for the day, taking you to safari life, but also searching for the animal for you. So we came to this very stump over here. It just looked like nothing, but when you look at this stump, you can see how it's wound up pretty much. And this is when animals need this kind of a short stump like this, more especially rhino and buffaloes. Warthog sometimes, they can use it. And it's actually a rubbing post, so it's really, really useful for the animal like those. Sometimes when after the mud wallows, animals like buffaloes or rhino, they need to come across one of these stump, and they do that by letting this stump right in the middle of their tummy, so they'll move back forth as they kind of like slightly suck down, and then for sure it's kind of like a scratch, but it's the only way they can get rid of their ticks and the parts where it's not actually easy for them to able to stick their tongue or get rid of this parasite. Some animals and the parts, the skin is very sensitive. So the only way for them to able to make sure it all stays safe, it's when they are also use some trees or falling logs, rub against this. Seen warthog would do the same, rhino would do the same, buffalo would do the same. So elephant, actually it's very small for the elephant, but for the small elephants, of course, they can still use it, and sometimes they can scratch their leg, because elephants, they're sometimes very good at it. So while I'm talking about elephants, this morning I had a question from Linda. So I think I have her question answered. Linda Sonto this morning. So she asked the questions. Do the elephants have symptom of dementia, which is, when I actually have a look at that, I only found that most animals, especially animals like elephants, they have a good memory of, even when they're old in age, but they're still really trying to think what was happening for the last past, and thing that happened for them recently or a few years ago, those that actually still remember that. But if they ever have a problem with their brain or can't really think what happened, and then that could be the same with most animal. Cows, sometimes they lost their mind, can be sometimes see kind of a strange behavior, that animal run around and, strange behavior more than all animal that you have around here. So most of the time it can be a little bit difficult to deal with kind of situation when an animal does that. If it's a cow, usually they get rid of it because sometimes they can be really harmful to other animals. So yeah, that's a question for her this morning. I think she's on the shore there. So the plan for this afternoon, we're going to be checking around in this area where Talamba, she was seen, but we're not sure if we can find it. We're just checking pretty much view of the waterhole. While I'm doing this, I'm going to take you to another safari live.
Welcome back to the Mara, where our giraffes are still feeding while some of them are resting. Now, from a distance, sometimes you can be able to tell with the feeding behavior whether it's a male giraffe or a female giraffe. Now, fully grown, we call them bulls, and the fully grown females, we call them cows. Now, the giraffes sometimes, males tend to feed on full stretch, while they're reaching about 5.8 meters from the ground. And the females, sometimes you see them feeding with their lower heads down, even sometimes bending their necks to reach the top low bushes like this. So this is only some females here. The bulls have left. I've just only seen two who went over to the forest area. So sometimes this can make you know whether it's female or male giraffes that are feeding. Like I told you, they're very selective feeders. So they pull the leaves and the small twigs into their mouths, and then they nip them with their tongues to see what parts are edible. And then they put them in their lower incisors and upper their gum. And then those small sticks and thorns, they spit them out. Rosalind, thank you so much for your question. A giraffe's tongue is about 45 centimeters. Can you imagine 45 centimeters? So that helps them or enables them, when they stretch up their necks, they can stretch their tongues to reach the leaves and pull them down. So it also helps when they're browsing and feeding around amongst trees. So about 45 centimeters. There's a little creek there. The giraffe went across. I like the way they walk. That's a very nice, majestic walk. Magic dragon lizard. What a name. My favorite experience with giraffe is when I saw one give birth. That was my first time, and of course I had to wait for about 6 hours for the baby to drop down. I remember I was driving at around 6:30 a.m. and came across this giraffe that looked very, very confused. Little did I know that she was about to give birth. I tell you what, I waited for almost 6.5 hours for the baby to drop down. So that was my very nice experience watching a giraffe give birth. See how they bend their neck to reach the top of the low bushes? Very, very cool to see. And if you look carefully at all those bushes, they have that shape that are very well trimmed. So as I drive every day, I look over the bushes, the trees, the browsing line of the giraffe. It's so nice. They're very well trimmed. So it's been nice watching these giraffes feeding. Warren, thank you so much for your question. Yes, giraffes sometimes feed on grass. And because of that, the fresh sprout that pop up on the grass, on the ground, after it just rained, the giraffes will take an advantage of that. So yes, sometimes they can feed on some grass, but they mostly browse on leaves and twigs. It's so beautiful and peaceful. Sometimes when giraffes lack some nutrients in their body, especially when the soil is poor in phosphorus and calcium, you will see giraffe get their minerals when they chew bones, which is a very, very interesting behavior to watch. I can see an elephant up in the background. So this comes very helpful when you see elephants on the grazing grounds like this, because elephants sometimes would come in handy because of their task. You see, sometimes they dig on the ground for minerals, and that can be an important role for all the animals that feed around this area. You find giraffes, Thompson gazelle, zebra, wildebeest, like all come to feed on the minerals. So when there's a mixed herd like this and elephants among them, I know it's very, very important, because without the elephants, then we'll have so much that these animals will lose. I think I'll leave these giraffes and go to find something else while I take you over to another live location.
Yes, from giraffes to another animal, and here I have a mixture of a few. There is wildebeest, there is waterbuck, there is impala, there is zebra, water mix. This is what we call a multi-species association, where they all come together for one purpose. It's the more they are, the more the safety, there is. Here, there is very soft grass because it's in one of the marshy areas, and so they can combine a drink and water. Sorry, a drink and a grass. The wildebeest and zebra are part of the migratory species that we get. We rarely get, permanent wildebeest here these months of the year, but we do have a good number of zebra that stick around throughout the year. The waterbucks are residents, and they have quite a big, what we call a home range, and they love water. They're always close to water. The impalas are residents. They never go anywhere. You see one there, but there is quite a good number. We'll get to see them. All these animals are grazers, and they're enjoying their favorite, meal here, the grass. It is a beautiful setting, as you can see. The waterbuck you see here is called the common waterbuck, and it does have, or it goes with a small herd or a harem of about 6 to 7 females, and they are doing very, very well. Here looks like there's a few males, so it means it is a small bachelor herd. You see all the horns? Yes, so it is a small bachelor herd. They do form these bachelor herds of up to around 10. Wild dogs, thank you. Yes, they are herbivores, and all are grazers, and they are here for one, reason, eating the grass. They must have come here, earlier on, because in the evening most animals don't like this area. I know it from experience because it's full of hyena and lions, and so they'll try and avoid it. The bachelor zebra is also a migratory, and they come in some small herds called dazzles. Here they seem all to be passing time. It's too hot, and so the decision has been made here for them to just, stop, use minimal energy and do not much. The stripes do help in regulating the body temperatures. The white minimizes extreme, heat attraction, and the black, attracts the heat when they really want it. Zebra is one of the few grazers that we have that, you never see a thin one. And the main reason is that they are well adapted with, incisors, both upper and lower jaw, unlike other, herbivores or grazers that have got either above and a very hard part on the bottom. And so they are able to pluck even the coarsest of grass, and with a very efficient, hind gut fermenter, which means, they don't regurgitate, their food. They don't have a 4-chambered stomach like impalas, like waterbuck, like wildebeest. Here they just take it in, and it takes a couple of days, and by the time it comes out, it is properly utilized. That guy looks like he wanted to apply an extra layer of dirt onto the skin that, smothers either any bacteria or biting insects that are on the back, and also reduces the glare of sunlight direct onto the skin. He's hard enough, and it's time to move on. Here, we have a gray-headed heron, and looks like it's stalking something. Very seriously staying still. It is a technique they apply to walk and just stand there. Sorry, the zebra just get crushed. They could be either a frog or a fish or a worm that he sees, but he's still waiting until it's properly exposed before it can stab it. Well, let me take you to another live safari vehicle in a different location.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Tswalu Kalahari. What we have here is a double-banded sandgrass. It's a male, a little bit shy, but if you just had a glimpse of what we had, looking at the face is what would give it off. It has two black stripes or rings just between the beak and the eyes, and hence the name double-banded sandgrass. Also a very iconic bird for these arid areas. Let's see if it does come out behind those bushes there. Give it a bit of time. Yeah. Let's see if it does come out. Patience is the virtue here. It looks like it doesn't want to play along, so we will keep moving and maybe we find another one that would play along. Thank you very much. Over to you guys.
Well, our heron hasn't gotten anything. He's still waiting maybe for the fish or frog to surface. These zebras keep crashing, get crashing onto our, scene there. This zebra, it's called Burchell zebra, and actually it was named after a famous British explorer and a naturalist called William John Burchell. When he came here, I think he was sent by the Royal Geographic to do something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but, he found that, nobody had named them. Although we call them Punda Mulia, the donkey that cries, because when it calls, sounds like somebody crying. It didn't have an English name, and so he decided to call it Burchell's, after himself. Quite interesting. William, Burchell's, it's called, but, over here we call it Punda Mulia. Yeah, this is an animal that, interestingly, carries a baby every year, and something quite unique about stallions and females that are carrying a young one, mares that are carrying a young one, is that when they are spooked and they lose each other, when they come to a safety spot, stallions try to gather up new mares, and if they find their own, they will be very happy. If they don't, and find new ones, they will go checking them for if they're carrying any young ones. If they are carrying young ones, might sound very gross, males will force mate those mares, and so they can abort the fetus, such that they can actually come into season quicker and they can sire their own offspring. And they're always carrying one for about 12 months. You sometimes find even two young ones suckling, different ages suckling from one mother. It's because every year they come into season. A fully grown zebra will weigh up to around 280 kilos, and can weigh up 280 to 300. This is an animal that has got a few defense mechanisms. One of them, apart from, the acute senses, the hearing, sight, and smell, it can bite because it's got, 4 carnassials, very long, almost 2.5 centimeters, meant for fighting and also biting. So they can bite and also they can run really, really fast. Apart from that, they have one of the strongest kicks. So they can kick really, really hard. Almost, a kick that can kill a hyena instantly, can, break a lion jaw or even cause death. So those are the few mechanisms. And I have seen them use all those. One of the ones that I saw was them biting a crocodile that, had gotten hold of the zebra's leg, and it just bit it, and the crocodile released it. So they have some defense mechanism, and they are not endangered. Their numbers are very, very stable. In the early 1900s, they were, highly prized, the skins, but nowadays they are very, very protected. This time of the year, we don't see this many. The reason we see this many, it's because the migration is still with us. Like I said yesterday, everybody says that the migration ends at the end of September. Now you can refresh that. Ends end of October until, they leave. We're going to say it's end of October. Susan Jumbo, what species of wildebeest is this? This is the white-bearded gnu, Conochetes taurinus in Latin. Their name comes from their white beard, perfectly seen, as you can see there. It's the only, type we find here in East Africa, and it's the only animal that outnumbers all the other animals. These guys live for up to 18 years, and they come here in the month of June. They mate while they're here. The reason is the grasses around the Mara are highly nutritious, and so females come into season. They mate while they're here, and by the time they get to southern Serengeti, place called Olduvai Gorge, close to Ngorongoro Crater, they are ready to drop their calves. And once they're on their feet, within a very short time, 2 months, they're ready again on the road for a long journey that ends up here in the Mara, where they mate again, and the young ones are weaned when they're about 6, 7, and 8 months. During this time, when they migrate, many die of exhaustion. Some areas are far from water, and if taken for those that are old, they get exhausted and die. Many of them die while crossing the river, and a good number dies in the hands of lions, leopards, and mainly hyena. It is an animal equipped with very good senses, but most predators take advantage of the big numbers because they sometimes just move around without really taking care. That guy looks like he's been quite a lot under, some rough time. He's lost one of his horns. Well, I'm gonna move on. While I do that, let's see what's in another live location.
One of my favorite things about hot weather is that often you get these guys coming down to big water holes in order not only to get water, but as you can see, to spray themselves. And the whole herd should be coming down shortly. You're going to see a whole bunch of others arriving with this group, and I'm hoping that they're going to even swim. Look, it looks like they're going to, which is going to be super cool. It's a bit of a shy herd, this one. It's an easy herd to recognize. It's got a female with one tusk, but they're not huge fans of the car, this particular herd. They like a bit of distance, which is why we've parked quite a long way on the opposite side of the waterhole to allow them to have the best time and to enjoy the water. Like I said, it's a hot day today, so you can feel for them, and I'm sure wading into water like this and getting nice cool drink as well as just spraying some on the ears is the perfect way to cool down. Look at the little one bending down to drink. I'm not sure why it's doing that. I mean, it seems like its trunk works okay. Maybe it was just that thirsty that it couldn't be bothered to actually lift water. It has decided that it's just going to face plant the water instead and drink as much as it can as quickly as possible. It's like when you've had a long day and you kind of down a glass of water. Almost feels like that's what that little Eddie was doing. But I absolutely love it when Eddies come into the water like this to drink. There's a specific reason why they're doing that. Today, the wind is blowing basically from them to us, but at a slight angle across us, I suppose. And so what must have happened is there must be a lot of collection of debris in that corner, and it's why the Ellies have walked into the water a little bit in order to get the cleaner, fresher water towards the middle of the dam, where there's not as much of a scum layer that they have to kind of drink. They'd rather prefer the cleaner water. Isn't that pretty? Just love listening to the sounds of these guys when they drink. Rosalind, elephant calls are loud. I mean, I'm not sure what they would measure if you had to use a decibel meter to figure it out. I'm sure there is info on it, but I don't know the exact figure. But it's loud enough. When you have an elephant scream its lungs out next to you, particularly these little ones, you certainly know about it. It's piercing. And us as humans, I mean, I've heard elephants shouting like that from 3-4 kilometers away. So, you know, that sound does travel, particularly if you've got the right kind of terrain. So they do produce a hefty amount of sound. Their general kind of communication, which is, you know, just talking to each other, that we don't pick up at all. That's at a much lower wavelength than our ears are able to utilize. But their trumpets, like I say, the cries of young ones when they want milk and they're not getting it, or if they've been hurt in some way, those are pretty loud, and the distance, well, the sound travels quite a long way. Isn't it amazing? Just as quickly as they come, they go as well. And you'll often find what's left when a herd comes to drink is these younger boys that stay behind. So the sub-adult males are often ones that like to hang around at the back and just linger a little bit. Sometimes if there's a number of them and they're slightly older, so if you get those kind of 12, 13, 14-year-old bulls that are still hanging around, they often are the ones that will swim. This particular case, it's a cow and a calf that's together, but often you'll find younger males that will stay and they swim around and then they catch up with the herd. But it seems like today we're not going to get any of our young bulls. There was one young male, but he's gone quite far already. He didn't even come down for water. I just saw him kind of crossing through the thicket behind all of these guys while they were drinking. So maybe he's going to rather go and have a swim at Twin Dams as they're heading straight in that direction. That was very cool. Been a while since I've seen Ellies having a drink at a waterhole. So Shay, they don't suck up water without sucking up other objects, so they will get some debris in the water that they drink. So as they're sucking up, what you'll find is when they drink, they turn their trunk and you get this kind of loop that takes place. But if you look at the trunk when it's looped, you'll notice that there's a section of the trunk that is actually lower than the point of the mouth. And so what happens is if it's heavy sediment, so things like sand, branches, rocks, whatever it may be that's been sucked up, that will sit in that little loop of the trunk. And then when they drop the trunk out of the mouth, you'll often find this water kind of like a little bit of residue water splashes down at their feet, and that's often what's filled up with debris. The other thing is in the roof of their kind of trunk, so right up at the nasal cavity, there's a little membrane, and that stops all kinds of rubbish going into their lungs or into the nasal cavity. And then on top of it, if they suck up anything that's really big, they've got a little divide in their trunk. So they've got 2 holes with a little divide, which means that no big objects are going up there that they can't deal with. And if it is slightly too big, then they just spray the water out and then get another mouthful. But we're not going to follow them. They're, like I say, a little bit of a shy herd. We know that herd quite well. They don't take kindly to being followed by a car. And so we had a really nice view of them drinking, so we're going to leave them alone. And also because I want to head quite far to the west today. There was a report of Insele on Simambili and Tingana, but not together, so they were separated. But so I want to try and see if I can go find one or the other, see if they are milling about somewhere on this western side. They said Insele was on a kill, so should be easy enough to find her, I think. You never know with leopards. Sometimes they finish their kills and they decide to go walking off. Also, interestingly enough, yesterday morning we had Sabi and the 2 cubs at Twin Dams, and I was saying that when we were tracking her, there was tracks for a big male leopard joining with her tracks, and so we had tracks for the 4 leopards walking together, but we only saw Sabi and the 2 cubs. In the afternoon, they found her with the 2 cubs, and Mulawati was with them, so he, I think, was with them when we found them, but maybe he just got a bit kind of shy and looped in a different direction, but he was with them in the afternoon when they were seen. So pretty cool to see that, and I think that goes a long way into establishing that he sees those cubs as his, and that it's in all likelihood that he is the father, given where Sabi's territory sits and you know, where she is and the time that she's spending with him. All right, we're going to head off to the west. Hopefully we'll have some luck with the 2 older leopards that we're looking for.
Good luck, Tristan. Here we sitting right here with this beautiful colored bird. I don't know if it's going to fly off for us, but it's been sitting there for probably a while now. So this is a lilac breasted roller. As you can see on their throat, it's kind of like very much lilac in its colors, and it's probably sitting there. It's all about hunting. Most birds, that was a defecation, so they hunt well when they're perched up. You know, from them, for that, able to scan around on the ground. So any movement of insects from that height, it will be really spotted. They have a very good eyesight. You know, since we talk about the temperature rise, some birds are opening their beak just to try to suck air in and out. You know, birds can also yawn as well sometimes. You know, the only herbivores or cats or us. So these type of birds, they stay all year round in this area. They don't really migrate. So we have them through winter, summer, which we're in summer now. Beautiful beak opening there. It's trying to balance. It's trying to balance also. But you will notice every time it's something you already spot, we're just going to go down to the ground. As doing that, you know, it's very small bird, but it's on the ground now. It's probably got something, but it's going different way. They probably lost it. So I think it's got something, but it didn't come really to the very same spot. I'm going to roll forward if we get another. Oh, Morgan, I think he said he got it right there. Yes. Thanks, Morgan. Probably whatever it was, probably swallowing right now. So they do that. They move around sometimes. They do kind of very specific call. especially male, trying to advertise their range territory and, of course, fly up in the air, kind of like display down in a rolling action. Able to see magnificent color when you do that, if there's a chance of the sun shining through that bird. Would be having some other birds as well as other Good afternoon, Sinek. You want to know if that tail is specifically used for that bird when they're on flight, changing direction. So, it could, but sometimes most birds, when they have no tail, of course, it will be very much difficult for them to be able to balance, more especially on flight. So you're right. So they use it for pretty much balance also, and that's how they do it very quickly, by using that tail. But I don't know if you're able to look, that if that bird ever look away or towards us, you'll see able to see that tail. It's like a fog instead of just square tail. It's kind of like puffed up the feather. Usually we know for sure when it's colder in a day they do that, but it could be a way of trying to show its color beautiful. Remember also that one of the birds, when they're pitched together, male and female, only tell the difference when they're together. Usually male smaller, female bigger in size, but in color they all look the same. It's getting around again. We're probably going to see another hunt, if it's possible, looking up in the air. So most birds do blink like us do, but for them able to check both sides, they gotta have to do that sometimes. Swing the head up or low down, so one side or other position of their eye able to, check on a one way, and the other one whilst looking down. Sometimes they turn their heads down right away, and just to check what is moving around. But of course they can be vulnerable to bird of prey as well. There's more. Good afternoon. I think I had well there your name. So you want to know if this bird, the colors mean something for them. So usually, of course, they know for sure. He's gone down on the road. No. You got it, Morgan, on the far right there. Slide. Somewhere there. No, I think you were right. Up. It's gone towards us now, Morgan, right here. On the ground. Sorry, kind of very hard. So the most colored bird, of course, it means something or display magnificence. Some of the kind of, especially on females, for them to show kind of beauty, and then of course for the male to show kind of beauty. You might see that bird when it's during advertising of territory, also trying to show how beautiful it is. So you sometimes fly it up and then do that kind of rolling action as they go down. But then as they go down, kind of rolling down like that, if there's a chance you'll be able to see their wings. The colors, it's about difference. Color in that bird, of course, advertising that this kind of beautiful, but a lot of time the female don't do much of displaying. Only males does that, because you find maybe two females in the area, and they might be attracted to one male sometimes, and then for him to be able to play his role to attract them, and one of them will able to win sometimes, or both. So that's what the color usually do. But for them to be able to identify one another from the distance when they are far apart as well. So, sorry, it's gone. I'm going to continue search around and see what are all around here. Hopefully we get our cats as we're looking for. Since we're doing this, I'm going to take you to another safari.
So what we have here is something very interesting, and we've been waiting to show you this for quite some time. It's the cocoon sac of a bag nest moth, and I'll explain that to you a little bit more in detail in a moment. Hi, I'm Mike. Welcome, everyone, and you're joining me and Seb behind the camera here at Eco Training Pridelands Conservancy. And it's a gorgeous time of year. It's nice and warm and sunny. It's a little bit of a big cloud coming over us, but maybe it's going to bring us some rain, which we'd like to see. But I'm hoping that it won't rain on our parade. Speaking of parades, actually, I want to tell you about this bagnet moth now. So, this little cocoon, which we've collected for you and put on the dashboard right over here. So, on this side is what you see when you're just walking around and you don't know what it is, right? But if you turn it over and look inside, it is absolutely chock-a-block full. Now, I was going to try and use my Leatherman, but I think I'm just going to use my hand. Inside this, it's chock-a-block full of these individual little cocoon sacs. Can you see that? Inside this used to be a caterpillar, and you can see in here there are literally hundreds of these little cocoon sacs all stuffed together underneath this one cocoon umbrella. Now, what this was is a defense mechanism that this particular caterpillar or this larvae has. So the bagnet moth is a nice little moth, and inside each and every one of these individual cocoon sacs, they spun it around themselves, and they spun a great big one around, which protects them. Now, the reason why they do this, they spend their whole life, when they're a caterpillar, marching in these big processions. Sometimes they're actually known as processionary caterpillars, or processionary worms. Now, these are something that the cuckoos, the birds that are arriving from overseas right now, are specializing in feeding on. And the reason why they do this is because individually, this is very small. I mean, that one tiny little caterpillar becomes food quite easily for anything. But in a big clump like this, all of a sudden, it seems like a much larger animal. And so you can imagine when hundreds and hundreds of caterpillars were all walking in a big line, it might look a bit like a snake. So that is why processionary worms... Oh, goodness gracious me, that's my radio. Apologies. So that is why they go in a big clump like this. And they're amazing. They're covered in these fine hairs as well, which doesn't cause the cuckoos, the birds that eat them, mostly much concern. But it definitely is not comfortable for us if we get the hairs on our body. So I'm looking forward to seeing the bagnet moth caterpillars coming out this season, although I haven't seen one all the way since last year, so I'm hoping that they're going to be plenty now. We've noticed that the flowering season and the trees and the grasses and everything is just so intense this year with our very early rains and the nice warm weather. So hopefully this year is going to be spectacular for insects and all sorts of other things. We're actually on the lookout for a leopard at the moment in this area. We haven't seen it, but there was reports about 2 hours ago of a female leopard, maybe pixie pan female, I don't know, coming into this area around HQ to see if maybe we can get lucky enough to find it. I'll show you on the map, actually, where we are, because I think I haven't shown you this map for quite some time. So, in Ndlovu Dam, which you all know quite well, all the way down there, going all the way across down here and then up this road, all the way on Marshall Road, we come to the HQ, which is all the way up here. Okay, so that's where we're sitting right now, right on our boundary, and this leopard supposedly came in around here somewhere. So we're looking around these thick green areas, these hillsides where there's lots of rocks, to see if we get lucky enough to find this leopard. But we'll let you know if we do find her. In the meantime, let's keep going and see what else is about on Pridelands this afternoon. There were elephants at our waterhole earlier, which is always spectacular to see. And there's all sorts of other bits and bobs around. I know the buffaloes are quite frequently around. So let's see what we can find, and we'll let you know if we come right.
Welcome back to Tswalu Kalahari. We've got a giraffe just under the shade there. It looks like he's just been from a water hole. There's a water hole close by. I mean, the temperatures here are still a little bit warm, and that's why there's not much of an activity with animals like this. But obviously, as the temperatures go down a little bit, we might get them starting to be a little bit more active. But he's fixated in one direction. I'm not sure what he's seeing there. Let's see, keep an eye, and maybe something pops out in the direction that he's looking at. Look at how fixed the ears are pushed forward and just focusing in one direction. Let's just see what he's actually looking out for. I've just tried using my binoculars to try see where he's looking, but I can't see. Miley, the species of giraffe that we have in Tswalu is the southern giraffe, and it's the only giraffe that we have in southern Africa. The other species you find further east and north, which are the other 3 species of giraffe that you do find. So you get 4 species of giraffe that are divided into 9 subspecies. But here we only have the 1 species. I actually think I can see what he's seeing in the distance. We might not be able to capture it with the camera though. In the far, far distance, there is some springbok and some other antelope crossing, and I think that's the movement that got him so fixated in that direction. But it just shows you that these animals really have the height advantage, and with that, the sight also is exceptional. I mean, to see from that distance. I mean, before we could even ID what was in that distance, I couldn't even see by my naked eye. I had to use binoculars to try and see what he was looking at. So, yeah, good observation there, Mr. Giraffe. There's the springbok crossing by. Sunny, do giraffes prefer flat ground? Predominantly, that's where you find them. Otherwise, they do struggle with other surfaces. For example, I'll give you, just based on my experience, in the past reserves that I've worked at, we had a Prado lion that was renowned for taking giraffe, and what they would do is they would drive them into rocky areas, so on the foot of the mountains and the likes. And obviously, because giraffes walk all left, all right, but when they do run, they will run all front, all back, obviously leaving a very small gap between the feet. With the rocky outcrop, they tend to fumble on their feet, and that's where predators like lion would take advantage. And obviously, stumbling and falling, it makes it difficult for such a big animal with long legs to actually stand very quickly. And also, if you take again how they walk, it makes sense that they stay flat, or they stay in very stable grounds. I hope that answers your question. Still fixated on the antelope in the distance. I think we are going to leave him looking at what he's looking, and we're going to continue looking for other interesting animals around here. There is a watering hole. We'll check it also and see what it provides. Otherwise, over to our other beautiful properties around Africa.
Well, from the giraffes to, again, the wildebeest and the zebra. And amongst them, I've seen a couple of the beautiful and the only beautiful grey-crested crane. It's the national bird of Uganda, and they pair for life. It's a bird that can live up to 22 years. That is in the wild. In captivity, it could be longer. Feeds on small insects, frogs, worms, and even fishes, and plants. And, a pair usually, as they pair for life, the female will lay about 2 to 5, dirty white eggs. Maybe of those 5, maybe 2 will hatch at a period of about 28 to 31 days. And the are precocial chicks. There are 2 types of eggs, you should note. The precocial, those ones are the ones that hatch and immediately they are on their feet. They can run, so they can get away from predators. And then there is attricial chicks. Those are chicks like eagles, owls, where the chick stays in the nest for a very long time and the parents feed it for over a year or so. So the gray-crested cranes are precocial and they are ready to move as soon as they hatch. They become mature at the age of fully fledged about 3 months. And you might wonder how one finds one another because they pair for life. It is interesting because crested cranes will form one big massive wedding where you'll find 50 to 200 birds at a spot, and there is a lot of dancing and song. There is oh how, oh how, oh how, that is the call, while the males will jump up to about 3 feet in the air and do a 360-degree turn while flapping their wings. Those are to impress the pairs, and that's how young ones are married off. They find one another in that big ceremony, and when it ends, everybody flies out in a couple. Amazing. Yes, that is the great crested crane. And over here, it is feeding on seeds. Deer watcher jumbo, their nest is almost about 2 feet square. It's not very big. Usually one will stand while the other one sit on the eggs, and because the chicks don't stay in their nest as soon as they hatch, they don't need a big nest, so it's not as big, and it's always not very far from water, very hidden. I myself, have lived in the bush almost all my life, but have seen very few nests. So they hide it really, really well. It is hard sometimes to pick up which is the female, but during mating, the male does this elaborate dance that is so beautiful. He pops up and down like a Maasai warrior, jumping up and down, and then stretches its wings full stretch and does a 360 in the air, and that usually wins the heart of the female. I call it talking without words. That's how they do it when they mate. Over here looks like they don't have any young ones, but we've been seeing lots of young ones of the gray-crested cranes, so maybe we'll have a wedding and we might get to witness them marry one another. Apart from that, we have the white-bearded gnu. You see them everywhere. You might think, there are too many. They will overgraze, but without these animals, Phinda. Let's look at the book so that we can see the picture. It might take me a few minutes to open the book so I can show you the difference. But, size-wise, they're almost the same, but the horns are very, very different. The horns over white of the blue wildebeest actually are very interesting because they fold immediately as they come out of the skull, and then they curled in quite tightly. I'm trying to find it in my book Bible, and here we have them. We have a few of them over here. I don't know if you see them. We have the bridle or blue gnu. Here it is. It's much darker. You can see it's got yellowish legs, whereas the white bearded gnu, which they haven't put in this book over here, they don't have it, is, doesn't have the yellowish legs, and the horns. You see the horns, they're quite different. White-tailed gnu, it's got another one that's very different. It's got very funny horns. Here, this is the blue wildebeest, and it's got the horns are actually very tight, not like, the white-bearded gnu. So that's the difference. I don't have the white-bearded gnu here. So that is the difference, but we don't find the blue wildebeest here. It's found in southern Africa. Here we have only the white-bearded gnu. Size-wise, well, I'm gonna stick with these guys for a little bit longer as I try and locate something else. So while we do that, let's see another live location.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. We have been fortunate enough to find a pride of lions this afternoon here, just resting underneath the shade of this lone bush. Everywhere else is kind of bare of trees, and they've managed to all fit themselves in this tiny patch of shade. My name is Ross, and behind the camera is Gerrit, and as I said, we are coming to you live from andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve in the heart of Zululand on this hot and steamy Zululand afternoon. It is classically humid, and these lions are taking refuge from that heat. And these are the same lions we were with this morning. They were in the same spot, and they haven't moved an inch for the entire day. And I'm quite optimistic that if we stick with them long enough, they might show some signs of getting moving. You see them, two of them actually starting to groom. That lioness is trying to reach a spot on her shoulder that is just proving a bit too close for her to reach. Sorry, it's not on your screen at the moment. But this young male who's starting to lick his paw is also just beginning to show the signs of grooming. And generally, when we try to predict when lions are going to stand up and move off, it's these kind of signs that give us a hint. It's grooming, if they stand up and stretch, if they start to yawn. These are what we call contagious behaviors, and once one starts doing it, generally they all begin to kind of do it and slowly but surely wake themselves up. Just like, I suppose, humans, when you get up in the morning, you don't just get up and spring straight out of bed. You kind of stretch and get yourself in the mood first. So Hammond has asked us how many prides of lions we have on Phinda, and we have 3 prides, or sort of 3, I'll say there's 3 prides of lions. This is what we refer to as the Bayala pride. But in saying that, we have 3 prides, but a number of them have groups or subgroups within the pride that have splintered off and are not they don't spend time with the pride at the moment. Bayala pride, these lions are made up of 3 lionesses and 3 subadults, males, that you can see here. The one lioness, however, is not with these lions now. She's taken herself off with her 2 small cubs, and she hasn't been seen with the core pride for quite a bit, probably about a week or 2. And that's just while her cubs are young. She will keep them away from them because these young males are still cubs themselves, even though they're quite big. You You can see they're starting to grow small manes themselves, but they still have that playful behavior, and if they were to play with her two small cubs too roughly or too boisterously, they can actually cause some harm to them. So for her cubs' well-being, she'll keep them away from the rest of the pride until they're about 3 or 4 months old, and then she will introduce them to the other members of the pride. But in this area, the open grasslands of the south of Phinda, this is the pride that dominates. You see, something's just caught that young male lion's eye. It's actually a Wahlberg's eagle flying in the sky. You won't be able to see it on camera well, but he's just staring at it. And that cat-like instinct that he has, that curiosity, is intrigued by what's flying up in the air, but his body is still lethargic. So his body and his mind are not working in tandem at the moment. These lions are still very lazy. They're still very hot, and I think it'll be a while until they begin to move around. Even though they did yawn earlier, I think they were just feeding us some hope. I don't think they're going to move around anytime soon. So Elsa has asked the question, is there a dominant male in this pride? And no, there's not a dominant male in this pride, but there is a coalition of males in this area that is dominant and will spend time with this pride. Male lions, when they're adult, are actually not part of any pride, generally speaking. They are separate, they live separately to the pride, they have separate territories, but their territories will encompass 1 or 2 or 3 or actually as many prides as they can. So there are males in this area that hold a territory, but they also hold a territory further away. Their territory stretches far beyond the territory of this pride, and it actually encompasses another pride of lions. So the male lions that spend time and are the fathers of these young males in Ngala Pride also are the fathers of the cubs in the pride in the adjacent territory as well. And they'll share their time between the two prides, but most of the time they'll spend on their own, walking around, scent marking, patrolling their territory and defending their territory against other males. And one of the male lions that is the father of these cubs is actually just away to our right. We're unable to see him from where we are at the moment, but we may go and have a look at him in the next few minutes. He is lying flat in the grass as well, so I'm sure if they do all get up, they'll probably get up together, and he's kind of, I don't know if he's feeling a bit fed up with his young sons here that might have been playing with him earlier or something like that, but he's taken himself away and he will have nothing to do with them at the moment. He's lying under his own tree. So one of the youngsters has actually he's walking straight towards where I was just telling you about, that male lion, and we'll try and put the camera on that male lion. He's put up his head and is looking straight towards the youngster, and we might see them kind of interact here. Look at that little young cub going towards his father. I wonder if his father's going to be happy to see him. Oh, he didn't get there. I think he saw the look in his dad's eye, and his dad said, "No, not now, son. I'm busy sleeping. Don't come play with me." And he's just stopped short like a naughty schoolboy. And I think he might settle down there, close to his dad. Maybe he just got a little bit uncomfortable from where he was lying. There's quite a few rocks and boulders in this area. But we're going to stick with these lions for a little bit. We're going to send you over to another live location, but we're going to sit with these lions and see what they do for the next while.
Thanks, beautiful lions, especially cubs when they're daddy around, fathers around them. Sometimes they trying to very much comfortable with the father playing around near him, rubbing his mane. Here we came to Beblisuk Dam. It's quiet afternoon, and we're just sitting here, hope for anything to come down to drink. But so far, it looks like only one single male hippo that is in this dam. As you can see how he's enjoying there. He might actually yawn for us. It's pretty much active. He got down, up, down, up. So he hasn't yet have friends here. It's plenty of water, and I wonder where the other females are. Probably haven't returned. Or he could be not dominating any of the male or females. If it's that a case, a dominant male will switch water to another. Maybe he didn't come back here with his females. And then for him to call this as his own home for now, you only have to make space when they arrive. Of course, when the duck take places, he's going to move off, feed. But if it happens, maybe he just lost the female, which happened that. Maybe they didn't return there somewhere else. He would have found out when he get up there this afternoon or this evening. Hopefully wherever they are, they don't have male, because Ron, good afternoon. Welcome to your live show. So you want to know how do hippo communicate? So they make sound, but depending on what kind of communication, so some of this sound can be a warning or give a warning to one another, or there's something near them, or is something approach this waterhole. For that, you're able to make noise for everyone to be well alert. But for them to be able to know where the other partner is, also they make such a sound. It's actually few waterhole in this area where this waterhole not far apart. If this hippo started to make that contact sound, especially when it's kind of like dark, taking places where the sound had traveled far, and the other were able to hear it. Well, a lot of time this sound come out of his nostrils, but out of the vocal box, and kind of like very hard growl, and when you hear it, you will think of something else huge than what you see right there. So they, when they get out of the water at night, the whole body, it's got a whole little gland secretion where it actually secrete the moistures, glandulus, which is able to soften the skin while they're outside of the water, feed all night. But at some point, is no record of this gland for them to be able to use them as a scent mark or anything. It only help them to be able to sometimes get their skin soft. Doesn't actually get very easily dry when outside the water, especially at night. It's only moon that take place, so there's no sunlight. So that moisture gland secretion would only last for quite some times all night, but does sometimes run out of those if they ever haven't or have no chance to return or find water immediately. And that would actually make them suffer so much to a heat, where you found this animal, since they're vulnerable to heat, they got into a very thick, dense bush or river where it's a lot of shade, sand, and they stay there probably the whole day. Then they won't move anywhere else unless you disturb them or they get disturbed. And they become very much dangerous in that point, especially when they feel kind of injured from the sun. You know what sun actually does to them when their skin dry out. So they, since that glandulus doesn't really produce any moisture, and their skin just kind of like give up and crack and bleeding take place. And they have such a massive layer of a skin, so it causes a lot of painful in there. So I'm going to stick one more time in this very waterhole here, see if there's anything going to arrive. Then I'm going to be taking you to another safari life.
Well, we are patiently waiting for a little different type of leopard to appear for us. It's a small one that is crawling around in amongst the thickets there. You might just be able to see the shine of its scoots as it moves around. So it's a little leopard tortoise that is roaming about. These guys will be out in full force now that we're getting into the summer months. As soon as we start to see rain, we start to pick these guys up moving around, and there's of course now a lot of vegetation for them to eat, as well as a lot of water for them to be able to drink. And it always amazes me watching them move around, because they're like these little 4x4s that go through all kinds of terrain. This one has decided that's where he wants to go and where he wants to position himself, which is underneath the bush, and you can see the camouflage that they have. Now that it's in there, it's almost impossible to see that little tortoise. So when they feel like there's something that's around or potential disturbance, this is what they do, is they get in underneath these fallen over branches and leaves and grasses, and that broken up pattern on their shells, much like what a leopard has, helps them to really camouflage incredibly well. The other side of it is it's also a lot cooler in there. Being an animal that's in a shell, you can imagine in the hot sun, it gets very, very warm very, very quickly, and so this just helps for it to stay nice and cool and to be able to stop dehydration, really. Luckily for them, though, a lot of the little mud wallows have got water in them at the moment, so they don't have to walk far to find water. Very, very cool, though. Unfortunately, it's disappeared completely from view now. Amazing, though, that you can, a little animal like that with, this kind of shell can disappear the way that it has. That's for sure. All right, we are still on our mission to try and see if we can find Tingana or Insele, so we're going to continue with that in the meantime.
Welcome back, everyone, and we are still with these lions. I believe you've been spending some time with a leopard tortoise, with Tristan. Unfortunately, these lions are probably moving slower than a tortoise at the moment. They did show us some signs of life earlier, but they have all flopped down and are now resting again. Luckily, we have a cloud that's passed overhead, and there is some respite from the hot sun. So this lion, this young male that you can see on screen, with the beautiful short mane that's just beginning to grow in tufts around his chin and his forehead, he's actually come out into the open and has found a nice grassy spot in which to lie. But have a look at this beautiful mane. It's just the beginnings of what hopefully one day will be a massive dark mane. His father and his father's brother, who are, well, we actually have no idea which one of them is his father, but the two males that sired him and his brothers are both black-maned lions. And although he's showing a blonde mane now, I'm sure as he gets older, it will darken and become even more impressive than it is now. But look how he's flicking his ears all the time and blinking his eyes. I think there's some nasty flies that are buzzing around him to interrupt his rest. So Julia's asked a good question, and I think it's quite subjective. At what age do you stop calling them cubs? And I think with male lions, it's easier to define, because these young males will remain with the pride until they are considered by their fathers to be old enough to go out on their own. And when their fathers decide that they don't want these males around anymore, they'll actually drive them away at the age of about 1.5, 2. So I reckon until they are driven away by their father, they're still considered cubs, or they're at least considered by their father's cubs. So I suppose that's the only definition that we really need to acknowledge. But even until they are 1.5 and 2, they will kind of be subservient to their mothers. After that, they will show more signs of being dominant, and even if they do come across their mothers after that, they will be dominant over them. There's another one of these young males. But with females, it's different. I reckon they start to look the same size as a full-grown lioness at about 1.5 for females. So I'd say about 1.5. At 1.5, they're fully grown. They join in the hunts with the rest of the lions. They're fully independent. If they were to live by themselves, they could survive and hunt for themselves. So 1.5, I think, is a good age to consider them adults. But then again, with males, they'll only grow their full mane long after that. Probably about 2.5, 3 years will they get their full mane. So these young males have still got quite a while to live with the Pride. They're only one at the moment, so they'll be sticking around with Tswalu Pride for the next 6 months, or at least maybe even another year. But we are going to maybe leave these lions now and see what else we can find. I don't think they're going to move far at all. We might come back to them later to see what they're up to, but for now we are going to move on, and we're going to send you off to another live location.
Okay, after some signal trouble this afternoon, we managed to finally find some, and we are back. And have a look at what we have found. A female leopard that's currently moving around in the heat of the day, which is an absolute treat. In the sun, she's actually got some older cubs with her as well, which is what female leopards often do, is they try and move around and hunt during the day to try and avoid the presence and the activity of nocturnal animals like lions and hyenas, who will be a super threat to her cubs. So she's moving quite quickly through some dense stuff. So it's going to be a bit of a tricky one to try and keep up with her. But she's pretty relaxed with the vehicle, as you can see. Completely different to the leopard that we saw this morning. And there's quite a nice view. If we can get into spot. Let's see if we can. How's that? Oh, right in front of us. I'm going to stop here for now. I just think this might be one of the better spots. Oh, I wonder if she's seen something. Oh. You see how she's going so quietly? Oh, it was a bird. You see how she kind of stalked up? Oh. She did see those birds. Quite interesting. I mean, that's such an instinctive behavior. See an opportunity like that, and it's such a small bird, it would have been the smallest of snacks. But she still kicked into hunting mode. Now she's stopped again. Now you see how she's listening, looking, smelling. How's that flicking of the tail? That white on the backside is quite amazing. We nearly watched a kill there, completely out of the blue. I mean, that's just their opportunistic nature kicking in. They keep going as well. Let's see if we can follow up with her a little bit more. She's moving in quite an open area now, which is lovely for us. Makes our job keeping up a little bit easier. I wonder if she won't spot something else as she's moving. Oh. See how she's walking on this game path? The path of least resistance. It'll be a path that's been used many, many, many times by all sorts of animals. Instead of her trying to also, what purpose do cat whiskers serve? They will be a sensory kind of, they'll use it to, when they're moving through, they'll use it to pick up on things like vibrations, and they'll use them on their hunts, particularly on little birds like that. When they're walking closer, those whiskers moving around will be able to pick up on small little movements in the wind, which she will use to hunt. Okay, so I might get back to your question. I'm going to try and get into a bit of a better position here for all of us. She's almost turned around and changed her direction. So let's see. Oopsie. big holes. Hold on. All these big holes have been dug by elephants looking for roots in these bush willows that are around us and cluster leaves. I know sometimes it seems like I'm just aimlessly off-roading and going over all sorts of trees, but I promise you I'm doing it very carefully, avoiding particular trees and bushes. I mean, have a look at this. Oh, here she is on our right-hand side. She just disappears in the long grass. She'll use that to her advantage. Let's see if we can't find a good spot in here. Just going to ask Odie to be very careful here. There's lots of sharp thorns. Oh, sure. And Odie, watch your head here as well. Never a dull moment. It's always exciting following a leopard like this. Watch out, Odie, sharp thorns. Okay, there looks like there's a bit of a clearing up ahead. Let's see if we can maybe get in. I think we might be in the money here. Okay, let's have one more look here. Let's see. She is heading towards a drainage line or a dried riverbed, which might be tricky for us to keep up with her for now. And if she does go ahead, I'm probably going to send you somewhere else. In the meantime, I'll try and loop around and keep following her. This is the Tswalu female, for those of you who know about the leopards around here at andBeyond and Ngala. And she does have those 2 cubs. And that's very likely what she's doing here, is trying to hunt for them. Or maybe even she's going back towards them to go and take them to a kill that she's already made. It looks like she's going across the drainage line. So I'm going to send you somewhere else for now while I try and get across and try and relocate on the other side.
I wish that leopard success for their cubs. So right here we have a mixed herd of 3 grazers. We have topi, we have zebra, and we have wildebeest. Now this is very important that these 3 grazers browse on certain level of the grass. Now the eating habits, as one group eats the tallest grass, the next group will eat away the medium, and then finally, when it's almost completely eaten, then the herds move on. So this wildebeest has been sticking around here for a little while. So we can see some toppies there with very small young ones there. And we can also see some wildebeest. So this migration, let's say it carries on. By the end of January, that is when it will end. So by that time, this wildebeest will have gotten to southern Serengeti at a place called Ndutu. And around February, middle of February, and sometime through March, that's when they will begin to calve. So when they're around here, they take advantage of the grass, which is so rich in protein and sometimes calcium. And that's why you see this wildebeest, as they're coming all the way, they're super strong, because you can imagine for a 6-month or a 7-month-year-old can make all that journey up to East Africa in central the Mara, or maybe on the outskirts of the Mara, which is about 3,500 kilometers. So that is very important to note, that this grass is what enables them to be that strong. So these toppies, they have calves. They were born around September, towards the end of September. And towards December, that's when we'll see zebras giving birth. So most of these animals, or the grazers, will always give birth just after the rains, or the beginning of the rains. So sometimes people call it the Great Migration, but not so many people know when is the start or when is the end because of the circuit that they always make. But in my opinion, I always think that during the beginning is when, just after they start calving. So when they start giving birth around February, March, the herds occupy that short grass plains of the southern Serengeti, south and near the Ngorongoro crater. I like to always call that the beginning of the migration, because soon, when it's about to March, the beginning or towards the end of March, they start heading back towards the north, taking advantage of the grass that has grown from the long rains and the short rains. And I think the reason why these herds around here, when you look at the background, it seems like it's raining over there. And this is what that keeps them around here. So I'm going to hang around here because it's starting to cool down. It's a good time to look for cats as I take you over to another live location.
Okay, we're going to go live now. So what we found here is the cutest little jumping spider I think I've ever seen. Now I know cute or beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I just think this thing is very cute. Look at its forward-facing, really big eyes so that it can judge distance. Look how it's anchored itself with a little bit of silk by its abdomen there, so that if it jumps, it won't fall too far. And look how slowly it moves. I think this might be a male. It looks like it's got pedipalps, but look how its body is covered in these furry protrusions all over it. Now, I'm sure this is probably a protective a method that it has, or a way of protecting itself when it jumps, so its body doesn't strike hard into the wood or whatever it might be jumping to. Oh, it's on the move. So it'll probably try and climb onto my hand in a moment. I'm going to just move my finger out the way because I'd like it just to stay on the stick just for now. But they are really, really good at jumping. So even at this distance, it could probably jump off the stick and onto my cap, for example, is where it's looking right now. Look how it's looking around. It's really... So I think the jumping spiders are incredibly intelligent. Because you watch them, it's almost like watching a computer, making decisions. It's literally moving its head, adjusting its eye focus, checking where it's going to jump. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put my finger out at a little bit of a distance and see if it will jump onto my finger. Oh, no, this one does not seem like it wants to do that. So often they will, though. If I just... No. Not interested. It wants to hang out on this little twig that I've got. So these jumping spiders are ferocious predators. So this little jumping spider will actually be hunting for other small insects like flies. In fact, there was a fly that was buzzing around earlier, and it was following it up and down the stick to try and see if it could get close enough. So flies and all sorts of other insects will definitely be in trouble from this. And they often nest in the grass, actually. This particular type of jumping spider, I'm not sure the exact species, but they'll often curl a little grass inflorescence, or the flowery part, and make a little cocoon out of it to live in, to keep itself dry and safe from predators. And they'll come out often at night and even during the day to hunt for the insects. What it's doing now is it's cleaning itself. I don't know if you could see that. It was using these small little, it looks like, oh, hello, now it's on my finger. Hey there. So what they use is this small set of what looks like other small legs. Those are actually called pedipalps, and that's part of the mouth part. So it feeds and is able to taste, and that's where a lot of the sensory organs are. I'm actually going to put it back onto this little stick here. Look at that. Hey? Oh, there it's jumped. Look, it's on its. Oh no, it's gone. It actually hung itself from its little parachute line, or the bungee cord, in order to sort of stop itself from falling straight down. It's on my leg down here somewhere in the car, but I won't go and try and find it now. I don't want to move around too much because they are very small. And if I move around too much, it might get hurt. So once we're off, we're not live anymore, I'll find it and I'll move it to safety. But yeah, just leapt and jumped onto my knee, and then it moved down a bit further. But we're going to sit here at Leopard Dam a little bit longer just to see what else turns up.
Well, talking about Leopard Dam, we have a leopard at a dam, and that is the back of Tingana, who is, well, taking it easy at one of his old haunts that he used to be at so regularly, which is Simbambili Dam. Now, as much as it's exciting to see Tingana, I always love spending time with this cat, it's not ideal where he is right now, and there's a very big reason for this. Where he's lying, if we pan to the left here, you'll see it's quite a long way away that he's lying, but if you pan to the left, there is a whole bunch of sticks, basically. It's brush packing from when they cleared, so in that area there, you might notice those sticks, that section there. Now, this is where everybody thinks that Shadulu is denning at the moment. She keeps coming back to these sticks, and the fact that they think that she has suckle marks, it wasn't a confirmed thing, but they think that's the case. So him being here is not what you want at all. Even though he is a male leopard, and obviously he is a leopard in general, it is incredibly dangerous for these cubs. He did not mate with Shadulu as far as we know, and if he comes across cubs that he doesn't know, he will kill them. It's not like he hasn't done it before. He's known to have killed other leopards in the past. So, with Tingana, it's always something that you kind of wary of. You might see a top of a head briefly there. It's just another car that's arriving. And so we don't really want him to stick around here too much if she's keeping the cubs here. I hypothetically think, though, that she might have moved cubs if she has had them. And the reason why I think that is that yesterday morning, I was a little bit closer, well, not too far from where we are right now, and we had Tiani and Inzutini fighting. So that's two females and a male leopard that are right where Shadulu is denning, and she's not going to want that pressure. She's going to then move those cubs as quickly as possible. Now, Linda, you say the Duke of Djuma? Yes, the Duke of Djuma, although he's not been on Djuma much of late, so we need to ask him to please sort himself out. The one good thing, though, is if you look at his tummy, is it looks absolutely massive. Now, you're going to see some heads again. I do apologize. It's just a vehicle that's leaving the sighting. Unfortunately, we need to park a little bit further away because we are obviously trying to get decent signal down in the dam itself. It's not easy to kind of pick up things down there, so we have to be a slight bit away. But like I say, he's got a nice full belly, which is always exciting to see when it comes to Tingana, and his condition is nothing short of amazing. If we think of his age and where he's been and what he's been up to, for him to be as big and as powerful and as sort of muscular as he is at the moment is just absolutely amazing. It's been so cool to see his journey and to see him still being as strong as he is. And I wonder if maybe his little kind of one day into this part of the world has been following his girlfriend in Sele, because she's also on Simbambili today. Well, on the cut line of Simbambili and Arathusa. Devi, do I think Tingana is Mulawati's father? No. We know that Mulawati was seen up in Thornybush as a young leopard, which is, that's basically, to give you an idea, is we're in the Sabi Sands, then north of us is the Manyaleti, then north of that is the Timbavati, and then Thornybush. So it's a very, very long way away. Tingana, as far as we know, has never gone up that area. So no, I don't think Tingana is in any way related to Mulawati. And I don't think any of the leopards that we see in the Sabi Sands over the course of the last 10 years, which would have to be kind of in that range to be his father, or his father. They, like I say, we know where he comes from, and there's a kind of lineage that they suspect is for him up in that side of the world. It's just surprising that he is as shy as he is, given that he comes from a game reserve where there is commercial operations, and generally leopards that come out of the private game reserves are normally pretty chilled. So I'm surprised that he is the way that he is. The good news with Mulawati, though, is it seems like things are getting better with him. The more I'm talking to other guides that are seeing him, because he seems to have expanded his territory quite a bit to the west and south, a lot of the guys are saying they're starting to find him and he's okay with one vehicle, even during daylight hours, which is a really nice thing to hear. And hopefully over time he'll get better and better, much like what Tingana was when he first arrived. People nowadays see Tingana and he walks right past the car and he's one of the most relaxed male leopards you'll see, and they don't realize that when he first was seen in this area back in 2011, The first time I ever saw him, he behaved worse than Mulawati. I remember we were probably at the distance that I'm at now from where he is, and he was already running, even though he was mating with a female, and you can see how far we are. So you couldn't get within sort of 80 to 100 meters of him during the day, and at night even he would like duck his head, and he would be very sort of cagey in his movements. And then, like I say, you look at him now and he's a completely different animal altogether. So I still hold out hope for Mulawati. He's a long way still to go, and maybe he'll never be quite as relaxed as Tingana, but you never know. Maybe we can get him at least viewable and trackable compared to what he is now. All right, well, we'll sit with Tingana a little bit longer. We'll see if he decides to wake up and go for a stroll or maybe a drink. I'm hoping, though, that he doesn't head towards those sticks to his left.
Thanks, Tristan. Well done in Tingana. Now we're with the dwarf mongoose. Activity around here in that little mound where I think this is one of the male. I've seen him quite a lot. He walks around in muck all over, as you can see. He touched his back. Since they have kind of an anal gland, this is how they communicate. Able to left scent when they do that. Quickly it's going to run into the bush. So they are very territorial as well. So the whole group member, they were just going to be all scattered all over around here. But the dominant male, he's the one that makes sure, the dominant male and the alpha females in the whole group of this animal, and that they're the only one that reproduce when necessarily, and sometimes they move out of the den, move away from the distance. If there isn't a season of taking care of a young one, to make sure there's a babysitters, where it's a lot of the males that in a group consider as nothing. They just help us, actually giving a lot of a hand to make sure they clean the young one while the parents out, and then the parents return back to the mound, able to give them milk. And then again, they might vanish, but before they do that, they make sure those are they were in a hole or looking after these young one. There's a time they might actually now move off to feed. So they take turns in terms of looking after the young one. So they're actually one of the creatures that they are, social animals. They love one another and they respect one another, but they hunt for most crickets, and they eat termites as well. So, and the crickets as well have been taking the small carnivores around here. So they can eat anything they can. Sometimes dirt bird pick it up. Sometimes they, combine or surround snake, kill them. So they're very good in that. But if they ever enter your garden, you might be happy if you have a cricket destroying your lawn. These guys will deal with them. But then you have a lot of work to recover where they have dig around, because when they do that, they have to scratch everywhere on your yards to be able to get whatever's in the ground. Very good sense of smell. So every time they find little holes, because these crickets, they use the specific holes, and these guys are able to tell how far is anything there. So they don't dig just for nothing. They always make sure there is something where they is in a hole, and they get it and feed on. And they're very diurnal animals. When they get up, they move social, such long distance sometimes. And then, of course, if they have to come back to the same mound, they will do the same. But if they delay, then there's so many of a mound. And the boundary line works this way, where there's another group on the far side. They might actually come across one another between the boundary, and then it's been seen that they're even joined together. But again, individual group will separate, lead on its way. So thanks. I'm gonna carry on. My mission was to look around for a couple of waterhole here. There's no sign of any cats, but I'm on my way to actually trying again. I'm going to take you to another safari live again, who will be showing you again the wild of African animals.
Well, Tingana, as you can see, has popped his head up at the moment. He's kind of still facing away, and that's probably due to the fact that there's a bit of movement from a heron kind of close to where he is, as well as some hippos that have been bouncing around. and making a bit of a noise, so that will kind of pique his interest, but I'm sure he's going to flop back down again pretty shortly. I doubt that we're going to see him too active just yet. It's still very warm this afternoon, and so I'd expect for him to kind of just flop down a little bit and then only wake up later in the afternoon. But he looks fantastic. I was just having a look at him through binos just now. He's absolutely beautiful. All right, so we're probably going to have to make some space for some other vehicles, but we're not going to go far. We'll come back to the sighting again just now, and hopefully he'll be a bit more active.
Okay, Tristan, while you're looping around to get a better sighting of your leopard, our leopard is also on the move still. We managed to find her on the other side of that drainage line, and I'm going to keep going as well to try and keep up with her. She, quite interestingly, caught a squirrel, and a hyena came through and chased her off, so she ran away very quickly. We spent the next few moments trying to find her again, but luckily we did, and there she goes. That's a great spot there. It looks like she's on the hunt for smaller things this afternoon. I mean, she's opportunistic, so she'll take anything she can get, like squirrels and birds. Butterfly, this leopardess, I mean, I wasn't there exactly when she was born, but she's around 8 years old, and she's an experienced mother. We've only been viewing her, or she only really came into our property that we know of in the past couple of years, though. So we're only estimating her age. She's got 2 cubs who are around 1.5 years, and they're quite big. I mean, a male and a female, and her male cub is almost the size of her and almost eating her completely out of house at the moment. If you stick with me for a moment, I'm going to keep going forward as well. It looks like it clears up a little bit up ahead. Let's see if we can maybe get around in front of her. Let's see. Oh, it's looking nice and clear here. That's great news for us. Let's try and loop around. Oh, there's a bird. I wonder if she will be interested in that. Look like a Natal spur fowl. This should be a great spot. If we can find her again. There she is, there she is, there she is. And here she comes. Let's stop here. If we're very lucky, she's going to walk right towards us. See how she takes a couple of steps, then she stops, looks around, smells, listens. She's just gone into that thicker bush. Let's see if she comes out. I wonder if she's not smelt something in there. Maybe she stopped and listened and saw something in the distance, in which case she'll kind of go into that low crouch position that we saw earlier before she actually pounces. She just stopped in that thick bush. I mean, she completely disappeared to us, which means she's completely disappeared to everything that's around her. And if she has seen something, let's see if we can't get a little closer. I'm going to try and do this slowly. If she has seen something, I'm not here to advantage her or disadvantage anyone. So if she is in a stalk mode, I will turn off again. She may well just be taking a break as well. Oh, there she is. It's amazing, the camouflage. She's just... Let's see if she keeps coming. Yeah, she comes. How's the lighting on her, eh? Beautiful. She's quite a big female. There she does again. Stop, listen, look. Amazing how she just disappears in the long grass, hey? Let's reverse slowly, yeah? There she goes. It keeps on going. She's actually walking towards the riverbed. And you'll see there at the riverbed, particularly on the banks, there are these great big trees that leopards love to hoist their carcasses into. So if she did find something here, it would be a great place. Although we did see a hyena not so long ago, it's close to the riverbed, in which case she's got nice big trees to hoist it in. And that's the best shot she's got at keeping that carcass away from hyenas. She'll then go and fetch her cubs and take them towards the carcass, where they'll be allowed to feed. Leanne, in general, I mean, leopard hunts are not very successful, but they take a lot of chances. So you saw her this afternoon try and hunt those birds, Leanne, and didn't come right. Then 5 minutes later, she managed to catch a squirrel. So that's a 50% chance shot this afternoon. Since we've been with her, I can't tell you for sure how many times she tried this afternoon or how many squirrels or birds she managed to catch. But this afternoon, let's stick with a 50% success rate, which I think is probably higher than normal. But let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Now I've got to try and find her again. I can't even see her with my eyes, let alone the camera. Nice and open area though. Slightly more open than what she was moving through earlier. If she's not doing what she did. I think I do see her. Hold on. She's actually... Oh! She was going for more birds. Right up ahead of us. She's now changed directions again. There's a great big rock here. Oh my, if she jumped up or stood on this rock, it would be absolutely beautiful. Just imagine that. But there she goes through the distance there, back up to where we came. Let's do it again. Oh. Odie, watch your head. Duck underneath, see if Odie can get there. How's the glow of the sunlight in her tail? See how she's almost zigzagging up and down, left to right, north to south, east to west. And that's one of the reasons that actually tracking leopards is so incredibly difficult. Firstly, they are normally on their own. Leopards are solitary animals. You can see she is by herself. The only time you'll ever really see leopards together is a mother and cubs, or if they are mating. Otherwise, they prefer to be by themselves always. So following one set of tracks compared to a pride of lions is very difficult, particularly if she's up and down, moving left to right all the time. Okay, so she's currently moving quite quickly and through some dense area. I'm going to loop around one more time. I'm going to send you somewhere else in the meantime, though.
Beautiful. So, good luck there, Jen. And sitting here with beautiful impalas, but they seems to be moving away from us. But we still got a little bit of a visual there. You know, impalas during the day, that's what they do. They much mobile. It's all a couple of male that we see right there moving in. So they are very, especially now in this kind of season where a lot of time you see them mixed with males, and since it's no mating season anymore, so we're still going to continue and look around in the eastern boundary. So let's take you to another guide who will be continue to show you the wild of African animal.
Here we are, from the impala to a beautiful scene set by nature. And I have a beautiful small herd of elephants, and the matriarch here is called one tusk, or one, call him moja in Swahili, which means one. And I have a very stumpy rainbow over there. I think somebody's getting plenty of rain over there. But it's just that time, it's the magic hour, the magic light, you know, for those photographers. Each one of them want to be here right now because the light is superb. Remember to talk to us, hashtag WildEarth. Question, comments are really, really welcome. And one tusk looks like he's got a very big cut on the ears. On, you know, one ear, not ears. Yeah, those one could have been caused by walking in the bushes or while scratching, you know, scratch very tightly against a tree that had been broken and it was sharp, and so it cut through, or maybe during defending herself through another female or another bull, it cut through. Those are ways that we identify these big patchy dams over here. That is a good indication and a good indicator that I can always identify her. One tusk and that cut on the ear, that is moja, and looks like she's leading a small herd out of the plains. Willie Jumbo, yes, a great view. It is a great view. Here, sites like this are, you know, common on those clear days when it's not raining in the afternoon, and very early in the morning you have these kind of views, endless beautiful plains, animals dotted here and there, and because some areas of the Mara are very flat, you can see very, very far, and so it is magical. That is a young bull. I would give him a good maybe 5 years. He's still very part and parcel of a herd, but sooner or later he's going to start associating with a small bachelor group. The African elephant is making a comeback, especially here in Kenya. Let me talk about here because, you know, conservationists have put a lot of effort in making sure that, you know, poaching has been eradicated. So unlike in the few years where we used to lose one every 15 minutes, now they're very stable. We can go for months without hearing an incident. And thank you for those people who appreciate them and talk about them. They are coming back. They're making a very good comeback. This is an animal that once roamed these plains, and their numbers were in numbers of hundreds of thousands at the beginning of the turn of the 19th century. But towards the end of the 19th century, we saw a very deep decline. Here in Kenya, the numbers dropped almost 17,000, but they are coming back quite slowly. I don't know about other places, but population is coming back. One threat facing these animals is mainly poaching by man, and also habitat loss, also caused by man. Thirdly, it's, few are eaten by hyenas and lions, small calves. When a big pride of lion come across a small breeding herd, they might outmaneuver the females. It's a team effort to bring down young ones. Usually it is difficult, but it does happen. Once they are that size, about 5 years old, elephants are almost immune to most things apart from man. And so they are doing really, really well. Very spread out here means they're very relaxed. Nothing to worry about. She's so big that female, I think maybe she's carrying one. Jambo Sasikasi, How many tuskers do we have in the Masai Mara? I have no clue. Yes, it's very hard to keep, tabs on lone males, leave alone lone males, but even the herds, it's very, very hard unless, I'm involved in the research. It's very hard, but I tell you, don't you worry, we have enough tuskers. Yes, I'm sure, in the last few days, you have seen a very good number of them. We've been showing you some massive ones. Yes, we do have some very good tuskers around, but I cannot confirm, how many we have. It's impossible for me. Yes, it looks so beautiful. The sun is going to sleep on the west, so that the light has slightly changed, but it's still very, very beautiful. Well, I'll leave you to enjoy that beautiful scene while we go to another live safari vehicle.
Well, we have had a good afternoon on Somobili between Tingana and our big herd of buffalo, which is always nice to see. I think it's the herd that's been hanging around over the course of the last few months. They've kind of been moving between sort of Manyaleti and the Sabi sands, and this herd is basically on their way back towards the sort of Manyaleti area. They're heading towards the kind of gate of the sands, but it's a really nice size herd. There's lots and lots of individuals in it, probably a good 200-300, maybe even more. They stretch quite a long way. Just slowly now emerging from the thickets. You would have found that during the course of today, they would have spent a lot of time in these thicker, denser areas, just sitting and sleeping in the shade. I think they probably would have been very close to where Tingana was at that dam at some point, because they've come from that direction. And like I say, are just slowly moving and heading more towards Djuma. Unfortunately, though, some of them are not looking great. There's a cow to our right here that's looking particularly bad. She's got a bit of a wound on her side, and if you can see it there, that the oxpecker is busy tending to. And while oxpeckers are generally beneficial when it's doing what it's doing there, that is in no way beneficial to this buffalo at all. What's happening there is that oxpecker is actually feeding off the blood of this buffalo, and so what it does is it pecks at the wound and causes it to basically start to bleed, and from there the oxpecker can basically drink that blood. So it's known as a seguinivore when it does that, and that wound will be constantly being kept open by these buffalo. Now, what would have caused that wound? Difficult to say. It's quite circular and quite deep, which is unusual, because generally when buffalo have those kind of wounds on them, much like black rhino, it's a type of insect called filaria, but it doesn't generally go as deep as that. So I'm surprised to see it, and also because the fact that the buffalo generally have been in very good condition, but that one is not looking good. It's very, very, very skinny. Not only does it have that wound, but its general condition isn't great either. Now, you can see there's a bit of a gold dusting on this particular one, which I'm really not sure what it actually is. It's obviously walked through a plant somewhere. You know what it is? It's all the little flowers from the bush willows that have rubbed off on the back of this particular buffalo, and it's given it a kind of little sparkly effect, almost like it's got kind of golden glitter on it, especially in this evening light. Michelle, you say poor thing for that buffalo that's injured. Yeah, not nice when you see an injured animal. The good thing, though, is that animals are resilient, and even though a wound like that looks really bad for us, if that buffalo can just keep feeding, and of course we're in a time now where it's the best time for buffalo. We've had rains, which means lots of lush green grass, which is going to be super tasty for them. When you've got lush green grass, it means that they put on weight pretty quickly. And as long as it's putting on weight and it's finding decent food and water, then generally they can start to overcome those kinds of injuries. It'll eventually close up. It's just the oxpeckers will unfortunately keep it fairly open for a while. Yogeshwar, yeah, they can. I have seen a bull buffalo with both horns broken and doing fine. So it's very possible that they can survive without their horns. It's something that they obviously do use them for defense, particularly in the males. It's not only a defensive thing, but a kind of way that they establish dominance is by pushing horns together. There's actually a really cool buffalo to our left here that's got the most amazing turned backed horns. You don't actually see it that often in buffalo, especially not at the kind of right angles that his are. Almost looks like a bull more than a buffalo. But in a female, if she breaks her horns off and doesn't have them, it's really not that big an issue. It's not going to cause a huge amount of problems. Let me get out the way for you there, Theo. And so she'll be absolutely fine. They can do just fine, especially in a herd like this. There's so many other members that would be able to protect her and protect the herd itself. That wouldn't be too much of an issue. Nice to see a relaxed buffalo herd like this. Sometimes when you're with buffalo, they can be a little bit cagey of coming near the vehicles, and there's a very good reason for that. It's because often lions hunt them, and you'll have cars around, and they kind of know that sometimes they need to be a little bit careful when cars are nearby. Dear watcher, have I ever been chased by a buffalo? Unfortunately, yes, I have. I've had a few kind of incidents with buffalo over the years. I've been chased. The one time we were chased on foot, we were tracking a leopard, and we found where a leopard had made a kill, and we had seen buffalo quite far away, and it was 6 bulls that were together, and they were kind of on the southern side of a big open clearing, but it was a long way away. I mean, it was probably about 400 or 500 meters, which is quite far when it comes to buffalo. And so we went to investigate, couldn't find the leopard. We found where the kill was, but no sign of the leopard. We were walking back to get the car, and all of a sudden we just saw these buffalo running from the southern side of this open clearing straight at us, and they chased us all the way back to the car. And we luckily, a couple of us managed to get to the car before they did, and some other guys had to get up into trees and various other things as they kind of came barreling towards us, which was not so pleasant. So I've had that. I've had probably the scariest incident though was we were with a pride of lions called the Southern Pride in the southern part of the Sabi Sands, and at that stage the Southern Pride was I think 23 lions in total, and they were hunting buffalo in quite a dense area. And as they were going along and hunting these buffalo, it kind of got dark and night set in, and we were sort of watching the lions, and the lions were kind of going through this thicket, and we could hear the buffalo just up ahead of them. And so when that generally happens is you turn off all your lights, and that's because you don't want to blind the prey animal, and you also don't want to show the predator to the prey, so you're trying to kind of even the playing field. And so I was parked on the road, and a friend of mine was parked in the bush, and we heard the lions chase the buffalo, and unfortunately the guy that was parked in the bush made the cardinal error in that as he heard the sound of them, before he heard any sort of distress call, he turned his lights on. And now at night when you turn your lights on, a buffalo can see, okay, in that area there's no lions, and they generally run towards the light. And so these buffalo turned and came straight towards where he was, and he tried to then drive away from the buffalo, but the buffalo kept angling towards the light because they could see nothing was in that light, and they just smashed straight into the side of his car. The tracker on the front fell off the car in amongst all the lions and the buffalo, which was not a nice sight at all. And luckily he managed to fall off and then run towards us, which was a long ways, probably from where those buffalo are now. He ran in our direction, managed to get on the car while the lions were wrestling with this buffalo right next to the other vehicle. And yeah, the car was completely destroyed. Luckily, everybody was fine. And the buffalo actually, funny enough, even managed to escape. So it was just a crazy scene. So buffalo are something you got to be a bit careful of. My favorite part about that story, though, is that, I mean, the impact that happened there knocked the entire car sideways and dented it in towards the vehicle bay. But there was an older gentleman that was on the drive. And after this whole incident and us having to go and tow this vehicle back to the lodge, we get back to camp, and he says, oh, why did we have to tow him? him, did the car break down? So we were like, looked at him and thought to ourselves, he must be joking around. And we said, no, the buffalo hit the car. He's like, oh, was that what happened? He had no idea that this buffalo had smashed into the side of the car, which I don't really understand, because there was this heaving brute and kind of stuck on the vehicle for a little bit and lions everywhere. It was quite a scene. But it just goes to show you've got to be very, very careful. And that's why at night, particularly, I tend to shy away from following lions hunting buffalo. I actually had another incident very similar to that, where a tracker was knocked off the vehicle. Same exact situation as that. So, it's people need to be careful when they do it and give these guys a lot of space. All right, talking of which, we're going to try and loop around, try and see if we can get a bit of a better view as they disappear through these thickets.
Okay, so this female has taken us on some unbelievable journey this afternoon, and she seems to have taken a little bit of a break. Still very much aware and listening and smelling and looking out. So I think she's definitely on the hunt, not necessarily going back to fetch her cubs to take to a carcass. Isn't she such a beautiful creature? So stealthy and amazing that she just does this all on her own. You'll see her male cub now. He's almost the size of her, and she's still hunting and feeding both her male and female cubs. And when she brings them to the carcass these days, he'll almost dominate her and kind of kick her out and eat almost all of it, literally eating her out of house. That'll lead one day to her just abandoning him. And that's how generally male leopard cubs will end up being on their own, is that their mom will just leave them. Females will often just leave on their own, particularly if they've got a brother with them, eating her out of house as well. Once again, she's going into the thicker bush, into the afternoon. You see how I love how she just stops, listens, tail's moving all the time. You see how that white flash is behind her though? Anything that's behind her can see it, but nothing in front of her. So she's just moving into a pretty dense area and towards the drainage line again. I'm going to try and move forward here. Okay, let's see if I can get one more view here. There she is. Wonder what she's smelling in there. Wonder what she's smelling in there. She maybe didn't see a dwarf mongoose, something run into a hole, maybe a squirrel. What if she simply didn't hear something and just investigating further? Super aware, super alert. Being on your own, you don't have the comfort of everybody else listening out for you, smelling out for you, even hearing out for you. See if we can move forward again. She looks like she's actually changed direction again and moving into a beautiful open area. Have a look at this scene. What a stunning scene. If she does perhaps drop into the drainage line, I'm going to leave her. It's that time of day where it'll be a great idea to go back towards the Birmingham Pride. Remember that Ross male this morning roaring at the potential incoming other lions? This will be a great time to go and see what happens there. Excuse me.
Wow, I hope Dan manages to keep up with that leopard and manages to stick with him. But look what we found here at andBeyond Phinda. We've left the lions and we've been searching for cheetah for so long. We've eventually found a mother cheetah and her 2 cubs right here on the tarmac of the Phinda airstrip, the only tarred surface on the whole of Phinda. And they have come here, I think, in the afternoon when this very stiff, cool breeze started blowing to soak up the warmth that's been absorbed by the airstrip during the course of the day. And they are looking absolutely content with resting here. Wow, this is fantastic, eh? We've been looking for cheetah for about 3 days, me and Gert, and we've eventually caught up with these 2. And how amazing is the contrast between this beautiful green grass that has just sprung up in the wake of our recent rains and their tawny fur. Amazing. And even though they're resting, look how they are positioned. They're flat, lying down, but each one of their heads is propped up almost at a 90-degree angle on their head, on their shoulders, because cheetah have to remain ever vigilant of other predators that pose a great threat to them. Cheetah are right at the bottom of the predator hierarchy here at Phinda. So lions, leopards, hyenas all pose a massive threat to them. So for those reasons, they have to remain alert 24 hours a day and keep their head up, swiveling, their ears pricked, making sure that they know exactly what's all around them at all times. And that's also one of the reasons that they come to the airstrip, is because it's very open. And if there is a potential predator in the vicinity, they can spot them at quite a distance away and then can make a plan to get out of there as fast as they can. Because even though cheetah are the fastest land mammal in the world, even the fastest land mammal can be surprised by a lion or a leopard or a hyena. And if they're surprised and ambushed, once they are in a confrontation or a tussle with a lion or a leopard or a hyena, they stand absolutely no chance. Look how small and wiry their frame is. They're built for speed and agility and acceleration, but they, in terms of raw power, are no match for a lion. Look at this little young cub's fur just blowing in the breeze. He's still got some fluffy fur on his belly, and I'm sure if we saw the back of his neck, he would have some fluff from when he was a small cub. He's now a little bit of an older cub, probably close to 8 or 9 months, but he's by no means able to negotiate the wild by himself or even get close to hunting on his own. So he is still dependent, along with his sibling, on his mother, and they move around with her through the bush since they were about 3 months old. They would have been kept in a den from birth, so she would have found a spot to give birth to them and kept them in that same spot. Well, so Deer Watcher has a question. Have they started to hunt yet? They haven't yet. So I was explaining a little bit earlier, they are born in a den that their mother finds for them, a safe location away from lions and leopards, or so she thinks or hopes, and keeps them there for 3 months. And at 3 months around, they are big enough and fit enough to keep up with her as she moves around. So she'll then take them around with her as she hunts and moves around the bush, and they'll keep up with her. But it'll take a long time before they're actually able to hunt with her. They still have to learn a lot before they are fully capable of hunting. So they watch her for at least 9 or 10 months. They'll move around with her, and when she finds something that she wants to hunt, they will drop down into the grass and just watch her for the first, as I said, 8 or 9 months, and they'll watch how she approaches her hunt, how she stalks, how she uses cover, how she uses the wind, and they'll take all of this in and learn. And even when they start to begin attempting to hunt for the first time by themselves, they won't be good. They'll have to learn by experience over and over again, trying and failing, and then I reckon around between a year and a year and a half, they will start to join in on those hunts. And it's quite interesting because around this time of year, November, early summer, the impala lambs that are in these grasslands as well, the impala herds and the ewes will begin to drop their lambs in November early on, and there'll be lots of impala lambs born at the same time. And I wonder if this mother cheetah will take the opportunity with the plentiful supply of very wobbly-legged impala lambs to try and teach these cubs some important lessons in hunting. Often cheetah a mother will catch an impala lamb, a small, quite defenseless impala lamb, and it'll be a good practice lesson to let her cubs play with it and chase it around and learn how to ankle tap it and trip it up and suffocate it. And it's good practice for when they actually have to hunt real live, capable and faster adults. So that may happen soon. But at the moment, we're going to send you off to another live location. We're going to stick with these cheetah to see if they perhaps show some signs of life as it gets a little bit cooler this afternoon.
I would also want those cute cubs to be successful one day in future. Now here we have our little young ones with their mother, and they're slowly grazing, heading up to the escarpment. It's raining on some part of the Mara, and that's a good sign that at least our herbivores here will have enough grass to feed on. So every day we've seen these elephants walking down from the escarpment. Look at that matriarch. She's one of the biggest matriarchs around here with the longest tusk. Most matriarchs around here have at least half the size of what she has. So this is one of the herd that I always like observing because of her. She has very beautiful tusks. And it seems like the one to the left is the frequently used tusk. Look at how short it is, and when you look at it, it has more mud. It seems like she's left tusks. And amongst this herd, there's a very tiny calf, and I'm sure they're doing a good job to raising the entire calves. Look at that, super tiny. I'm sure they will enjoy this grass heading back to the escarpment, and tomorrow morning they do the same coming back. I'm going to sit here for a little while and enjoy as these grazers and browsers come closer to the vehicle as I take you over to another live location.
Beautiful. From elephants to an elephant, here we come across a bull elephant also. And the first time when we arrive here, he's kind of like not happy much, trying to keep distance. Could be that he's enjoying his privacy. And we're just not far from the Treehouse Dam. Now he just went kind of like behind a bush in there. So for now, I'm not gonna move in this position until he give another gap for us to be able to do that. Otherwise, we're gonna have to go close to him much, and I don't think he will like that. these are the kind of males that they separate from the group, or they already separate from the group. It's actually a full-grown male. But what I've seen there, it's only have one tusk. And that happened during either fight or just lost during the feeding when they pushed this tree, big tree down. A lot of time they lost their tusk like that. And then at least the other tusk is still there, were able to help their trunk. This is when they feed. Well, this time of year, it's a plenty of grass. They only need to use their tuskers to help the trunk when they break off these bushes. But only grass, they will be able to do it with the only trunk. And the only problem with elephants, this is when the trunk paralyzes and that animals won't survive. They're probably going to die because of won't going to do any feeding at all. So I'm going to see if he will just going to go to the dam. I'm going to spend another 10 minutes in this area. If he doesn't, then we're going to move on. Let me take you to another safari.
Well, we are absolutely surrounded by buffalo at this stage. They have kind of pulled in mass. It's really very, very cool to be in amongst them, particularly if you just sit quietly. The longer you sit still in one place, the more that they come around you, and you can hear them breathing, and you can hear their hooves, you can hear the flies buzzing. Pretty much every little bit of detail, even there from the kind of horning of bushes, is heard. And I'll try and keep quiet so you can hear it. What you'll notice is that some of them are starting to settle down now, so I don't think that the herd's going to be moving too much further. We're about to get to a little open clearing just before you reach the sort of gate area and the kind of funnel to Manuleti and Sydney's Dam. And I suspect what you're going to find is that these buffalo are going to settle there for the evening. They're going to lie down, and then maybe a little bit later they'll start to get up and move towards Sydney's Dam, and we find their tracks tomorrow morning somewhere in that area. But it looks like a lot of them are deciding that this is kind of where they're going to spend the last sort of parts of the day. It's a perfect place for them. Like I said, there's a clearing close by. There's a lot of vegetation and food in this area. There's water also not too far away, so it seems like an appropriate place. They also don't have to worry too much about lions at the moment. The Djuma Pride is down on Mala Mala. The Telematis have crossed into Manuleti. So the only lion really that could be in this area at the moment would be the Shimungwe lioness. Now, she's not going to even bother to take on a herd like this. Way too many buffalo for her to even try. As a single lioness, she would be trying to target, smaller herds. This is just way too many individuals for her. So these guys really don't have anything to worry about at this stage. The only thing maybe that would come at them would be the EP clan of hyenas. They've taken buffalo before. But again, a herd of this size, most of them in very good condition, is not something that even that clan is going to tangle with. They used to hunt buffalo a lot when it was the sort of drier periods, and the animals were in very bad condition, and they used to try and target lone bull buffalo as opposed to big groupings like what we're seeing here. Very, very cool though. We've got one that's decided to come pay us a bit of attention just behind us at the moment. Hopefully it will carry on. So Nishka, those are dew claws. No real purpose to it. Well, not really for these guys. There was a school of thought at one point that it helped when they walked through kind of water and muddy areas, and that it was just an extra bit of grip. So those little dew claws just help stabilize them in muddy surfaces. Remember, the buffalo spend a lot of time hanging around water points. They're probably one of the animals that's most dependent on water. They need water pretty much twice a day, and so walking around those muddy areas just helps them not slip. Also just gives them a little bit more traction when they have to, if they do have to run out of places like that. So that was the kind of school of thought about them. But other than that, there really is no function for them. It doesn't serve to protect them. It doesn't have any glands in it for scent marking purposes. There's no real reason. But funny enough, a lot of the animals have it. So, warthogs also have pretty prominent dew claws, and if you find the tracks for these guys or warthogs in soft mud, you can often see the two dots of the dew claw from where they've stood. And so, hi guys. I love the little ones when they come and investigate you. There's one on the right there, super cute. They kind of have this intense look about them. They often kind of stare at you, and then every now and then you'll see this little buck teeth coming out. It's super cute. So Laura, there has been attempts at it, but no one's ever really gotten it right. And the reason for that is that these guys are grumpy. So domesticating them for farming is a dangerous business. Cousins of theirs, yes. So, water buffalo have been domesticated for various things. Hello, girl. You're coming very close. Females right here. But no, they're just too dangerous. And I think the fact of the matter is that they, what are you going to farm with them? Meat-wise, if they're from this area, then most of them have bovine tuberculosis. So it's not going to qualify for being able to be sold really as meat. There's some whole thing about that. And then they don't really produce a great cheese out of these guys, and so there's not really much use in farming them. Cows are far more, far easier to farm in many respects. They are less aggressive. They produce better quality meat, and so there's really no need to be farming an animal like this. What they are farmed for is for hunting. Buffalo hunting is a big business, a multi-million-dollar business. The cost of shooting these guys is not cheap, and so a lot of places actually do farm them and breed them specifically for that purpose. And also because obviously it's got this reputation as this dangerous animal, people have farmed them for that reason. So that's really the only farming of these guys. I suppose you can call it farming when that happens. An animal that's been bred to be hunted, I suppose, is farming of some description. Not that, it's probably the right thing to be doing, but better than shooting the animals that are in the wild, that's for sure. Interesting to see how big this herd is. They stretch a long way. We drove a long way through them to see how many there were, and I reckon my estimate in the beginning was a bit shy, so I think it's probably closer towards 400 in this particular herd. All right, we're probably going to leave them. They're starting to settle down. We're not going to disturb them too much further. We'll try to see if we can get something else.
Thanks, Tristan. The buffalo is also very good, especially in the herds surrounded. What a beautiful sighting. So now we come to these. We're still in Treehouse Dam. The elephant hasn't coming down to the waterhole still, but he's going to probably soon come down here. It's going to be beautiful. Watch this kind of like silhouette of, looks like Wahlberg eagles sitting in there. And then look at the background of the sky as the sun sets. So all you see, it's all the beauty on the background. And this type of the eagles, it comes up in a time where they would probably just gonna take it easy, perched for the night. They don't have to, they actually sleep up in trees most of the time. Most of a bird of prey do that. And their migration, they come down here during this raining season for they actually breed around here. And always pair of them every time they come back. And they raise their cheek as the migration coming in end when this is the winter take place. Remember, for them to be able to migrate, it's all about the feeding habitation. When there's not much of insect or anything around here, then this is when the winter take over. Then, of course, most of the migration birds, they have to follow the wet around. And this is what happened. But just so, probably looking at this waterhole here, where there's only grey heron just land on the far end. And then this bird, this eagle, is actually looking at that. Not sure if it's gonna give it a go for it or not. There is a grey heron just come in to this very waterhole, also to search for a fish. As you can see, beautiful reflection there taking place. As you can see, they have also very long legs. They can able to go a little bit inside to the water and make sure they can still feel the ground. And when they do that, sometimes they feel fishes as they move through, and this is what they stab. So they stab fish to death sometimes with this sharpening beak. If it's a small fish, just die from there and they just grab it and swallow it up. And I'm going to take more minutes here to wait to see if this elephant come to drink. Otherwise, we're going to move on. So while we're doing that, let's take you to another guide who will continue to show you the beauty of the sunset and the wild animal somewhere else.
Welcome back to andBeyond Ngala, and isn't that a magnificent sight? The sun just coming between the clouds and above the tree line. Absolutely beautiful. You could sit here and watch it all day. We were talking about African sunsets last night as well. They just get better and better every time. So now what makes this sunset even more special is on the way here, I actually heard some lions calling. And just on the left of us is that Ross male that we were left this morning. And it's kind of like we're just picking up exactly where we left off. I did see a little bit of stretching, a little bit of yawning from him. He seems to have gone back to sleep. But this time of the day, with it cooling down and that sun setting, I'm waiting to hear either this Ross male here to wake up and start to roar, or the ones that we heard in the distance, potentially those new lions that are coming in, the threat to this Ross male and the threat to the Birmingham Pride. I wonder if they're going to advertise their presence and actually challenge this Ross male, in which case it might end off as like a roar-off battle, and they may very well at some point this evening join up and end up in a bit of a skirmish or a scuffle. He looks fast asleep. He should be trying to save his energy. Thankfully, his brother's not too far away. He's got a bit of a wound on his face, but nothing that's going to interfere too much with his roaring abilities or his fighting abilities. It's the perfect time. If we hear the ones in the distance, kind of in the west, exactly where that sun was setting, this lion that'll get his attention very quickly. I think it's a good idea for him to just take the advantage of this time to catch up on some rest. He may need all the energy he can get. Look at the size of those paws. Those and the big teeth and mane that he has will be the predominant weapons that he'll be using this evening if he does get into a fight. I mean, a fight is the last resort. Neither the lions coming in or the Ross males want to get into a battle that's going to end up killing them. But if need be, they will. It'll be interesting to see if maybe his brother doesn't start to call first, in which case they might end up joining up and then roaring together. And then the lions that are coming in, they'll be able to hear two lions roaring, and that'll be an intimidation factor. Lisa, have any new males been sighted? No, they haven't. There's very few vehicles driving around this reserve at the moment, and it's a huge reserve, so they could very likely be around. We heard lions this morning, and they were definitely coming from inside our property. So I would say there are potentially new males around. I also saw tracks of males yesterday. It could have been one of these guys, but I don't think so. There was only one set of tracks, in which case one against these two males will probably back off. But if it's 3, 4, 5 lions, that might be a tricky situation, and the fate of the Birmingham Pride might be in the balance. I think his brother as well had a really good meal yesterday as well, which will go a long way to aiding him in a battle and having that excess energy. This male doesn't look too full, but he's not hungry. So I'm going to spend some time here. I've got a really good feeling, and I'm really being hopeful that they will roar to show you guys exactly what it's about, and I hope they roar super intimidatingly to try and chase the rest of those lions that are coming in away.
Well, if these guys were anywhere near where Dan is, we would certainly start to see some movement, because either these guys would get wind of that lion and try and chase him, or what you'd get is a situation where that male might try his luck. But again, like I say, single lions on their own, this is a far too big a mass of buffalo for a single lion to really have any sort of shot. It's not to say that they couldn't try, but I'd be very, 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 very surprised if a single individual tried to take on this grouping. It's a lot of animals and some really big bulls that are in amongst them. And we were going to leave them, but as we were kind of driving along, they were all over the road and just all around us, and it's actually so nice just to spend time with buffalo for a long period of time. We haven't seen huge amounts of buffalo in the last few years. It's been a really tough time for these guys with the drought, and so it's always good just to kind of get in amongst them and enjoy it. Now you see that particular individual is just taking care of horns. You'll see them doing this where they rub their horns up against trees. Now the theory behind that is that most of the time when they rub like that, they're they're basically grinding the cambium layer onto their horns. Now you notice some of them will have this kind of red pitting effect on the horns, and that red cambium layer, they say, is a massive deterrent for any sort of insects to land on the horns themselves, and just keeps the horns in good condition. Make sure that they don't get too many sort of issues with insects and things like that. And so that's why you see them doing it a lot of the time. I also think it helps with the fly population. You probably find that as they do it, they're knocking flies off and just keeping them away from their eyes particularly. You can imagine their eyes get a hammering from flies, much like the cats. Those little flies trying to get into, sequester the moisture from there, the nose area. And so it's always just nice when they go up to a bush and they can kind of rid themselves of those biting flies. So Alaramo, they can hurt each other. I mean, there's been cases of buffalo doing some serious damage to one another. Those horns, as you can see, have got some semblance of sharpness to them. But generally, the shape of the horn means that, and then the way that they fight is that they'll drop their head and they present their boss forward, particularly in the males. And that means that they don't have to worry too much about the horns kind of going anywhere near the eye. If you see with this buffalo with its head down, is the horns almost point backwards a little bit, and so if they do clash, the horns are not going anywhere near the eyes. Every now and then they'll twist and turn, but you'll find as soon as the horn starts to make contact with the face, the animal rears back and tries to get its sort of protect its eyes and its nose and all of that kind of thing from being damaged. So they're pretty good at making sure that they don't hurt each other. Ultimately, the idea of fighting is not to hurt one another, but more to try and get a situation where they establish a dominance. It's very different when they're fighting with cats. Then you're going to find that they're going to really try and push and use those horns to do some damage. And then they're not really as worried because it's a battle of life and death. But when they're just contesting for mating rights, then they really are quite gentle, actually, in many respects. But you can see the herd mostly coming over the road. Cool, isn't it? Nice to spend time with these guys. Most of the herd has kind of come through already. I'm pretty sure they're going to go onto the clearing, and we'll try and kind of see them in that open clearing. Victoria, will the oxpeckers stay on the buffalo overnight? Generally, no. The oxpeckers leave them at this time of the day. You can hear it's much quieter already, and you can already see most of these buffalo have got no oxpeckers on them anymore. And so those oxpeckers have all flown, and they've gone and found a place to roost. So you don't see oxpeckers on buffalo at night. It's just one of those things, really. It's not very comfortable to roost on a buffalo at night, and they get chased around a lot at night, and so they're disturbed a lot, and therefore the oxpeckers who don't like flying in the dark, obviously because there's a number of different predators that are for them as well in the form of owls, they prefer to just find a safe place and rest fairly close by, and then to find these guys again in the morning is pretty quick for them. If there's first light, they're able to take off. They can spot these guys pretty far. It's quite amazing how quickly oxpeckers are able to find animals. You watch, even if they get disturbed off this herd and they kind of fly off, they very quickly find an impala or a kudu or a giraffe, and they just bomb down onto that one as well. So oxpeckers have all gone and turned it in for the night, and it's a little bit of respite for those buffalo that are nursing a few injuries. They certainly will feel better about life now. You can see they're still quite interested in us, though. You can see they still watch us quite carefully, just making sure that we're not housing a lion friend somewhere close to our vehicle. So they always just kind of keep a beady eye. All right, we're going to meander forward towards the open clearing, see if we can get a kind of better view of the entirety of the herd. But yeah, let's see how it goes.
Thanks, Tristan. I'm also going to do the same if I was there. Herd of buffaloes, something else. So our beautiful single tusk elephant has finally arrived into this very waterhole. See what he does when he comes in there. He pushes the grey heron further slightly. And then every time he drink, he suck water, he drink half of the water, and those that are left, a little bit left in trunk, he's actually just push it out with high pressure of air. So you see, sometimes this bird is like getting a little bit of a wet, but it's amazing that bird doesn't actually fly away from there or keep more distance away from that elephant. Probably seen a lot of this happen. Water birds, and we witnessed a lot of things that happen in the water during drinking time for these herbivore species. It's been taking a lot of water. He will be actually continuously drinking again. Yogeshwar, good evening. Welcome to your beautiful show this evening with us. So you want to know if in that trunk of elephant there's a bone? No, there's no bone. So it's very rich in muscles. It's a lot of muscles in the trunk, only able to control such a heavy things like that. And otherwise, you see how it's very smooth. Otherwise, if it was a bone, it wouldn't really be easy for that animal to able to use it. Sometimes it's elephant will able to roll that trunk, curled up, pretty much like if you notice what the chameleon do with their tails, pretty much similar things sometimes when they want to. But yeah, there's no bone in there, just the muscles. I reckon about anything but 70, close to 80 muscles in that trunk that will able to control. I mean, it's such a powerful it's only hand useful for that animal to be able to use, sustain their life. Without that trunk, that animal will suffer. I was talking about elephant that sometimes they have a problem with paralyze their trunks. And that comes to the way where they cannot, if
Okay, so let's see if he does it again. He has just been roaring. He can even roar from a lying down position like that. He's almost warming up. So he is roaring. He is advertising his presence. You see that movement as well. He's in the process of starting to wake up. Starting to advertise his presence. Maybe trying to get his brother's attention to come a bit closer. It wasn't a full-on roar as yet. Still traveling many kilometers. You see how his head just tilted there? Ears up or head up? Let's see if he's going to do it again. See, he's facing towards where his brother is. I wonder if he didn't hear another roar as well that got his attention there after he roared. Let's see what he does. Listening. Come on, boy. Looking around, scanning, listening. His ears working like a radar, trying to pinpoint where maybe his brother's softly contact calling. I can't hear any of that. However, his hearing is much better than mine. Come on. These are good signs, though. I really hope he does it again in the next 20 minutes or so. I'm sure he will. He may even get up and start walking around and roaring, scent marking, showing his dominance. You'll see if he does start to get into it, it'll be a motion through his entire body. His whole body will work, excuse me, to get that right. Listen, oh, big yawn. He's on the verge. Turn your head this way, big boy. I wonder if he's not calling for backup. Big yawn again. Signs of him to wake up. What's your next move? Are you going to lie down? Lene, why are lions the only predators that get a mane? It's, a genetic advantage that the lion uniquely has. That mane, particularly in the males are the ones that do most of the fighting. Not to say that females won't fight. They'll protect their cubs with their lives often. And it's an advantage. It's an intimidating thing. When this lion potentially comes into a foe that might be coming in from the west, as we have been discussing, if he's got a huge mane, he'll be instantly intimidating the other ones. It also provides like a kind of protection. It's almost like a scrum cap to that lion. Like when the other lions are using their big paws, you can see him licking his paw there. It's like a boxing glove. That mane will act like a protection to his head. And just being the biggest predator around here, I guess that's why they've developed this mane, and an evolutionary advantage over the past thousands of years, I guess. Look how he's scratching his nose. You see how he licks his paw and then scratches his face? He's taking that saliva, putting it on his paw, and then wiping his nose, keeping it clean. see if he finishes cleaning here. Let's see what his next move is. Is he going to get up and is he going to walk to the rest of the pride? Is he going to roar again? It's amazing at this time of the day. It's at its stillest. The whole bush has come alive. The birds are all calling, kind of finding their resting places for the evening. And the lions as well pick this time of day to call as the noise will travel its furthest. It's amazing. Now we're desperate for him to roar, and he's kind of keeping us in suspense. Maybe that'll be a good thing for us and reward us just before the end of show with a magnificent show of his own. I think he's very interested in his brother. He's not facing the direction where the roars were coming from this morning. He's facing directly towards his brother. Up he gets. Let's see if we can follow him. Listen. Listen. Can you hear the reply in the distance as well? Sounds like the whole Birmingham Pride's roaring. Don't go anywhere. Let's try and loop around towards the rest of the pride. It sounded like they were all roaring. Isn't that exciting? Let's try and loop around. Follow him. Okay, so I'm going to send you somewhere in the meantime. However, don't go anywhere. This might be very exciting. I'm going to follow him directly. He's going to take us straight towards the pride.
Thanks, then. Hopefully you get right there with this whole pride, locating them. So I'm still in this same waterhole here, looking at this beautiful elephant. Now he's just finishing drinking, and he's just resting there. And it's all about on his mind now, wanting to know where exactly he's going to go and where the rest of the group gone. But they are very good on that communication system they got, so they were able to, where you probably know where they is right now, it's so that you isolate away from them, where they don't mind if they don't really join with the rest of the other group. It's fine, and they're still well comfortable by themselves. It's even a lot comfortable for them to be able to get around, feed. There is no pushing on one another. But that's, if you look at the trunk, it's rest on top of the tusk. This is what of the very important about the tuskers, elephant with the tuskers. And they're able to do that. Those without the tuskers, just can't rest their trunk anymore using this tusker because they don't have any. But it could be sometimes if there is an upset elephant, you often see them do that, or there's a defecation taking place, toilet break. And he's already proved that he's actually a male, as you can see. Urinating at the same time. Good evening, Mothy's mom. So you want to know if this elephant grow entire of his life So they grow in situation, it comes an end. And of course, this is when they're anything about 50 years. And of course, from there, they won't grow anymore longer in terms of bigger size. But they either, change in kind of conditions, able to see the skulls show pretty much of the temples that's just behind, on top of these eye and the top of the head there. And then you're able to see these are really much showing up the skull there. In that elephant, you can able to see even the skin itself, these rankles, folders in the skin. It comes very much bigger than compared to the young elephant. So yeah, it comes and stop halfway when they're old enough. Sure, looks like he's just going to be mobile now. But again, look at the trunk, it's on the ground. And then he won't stop feeding since he just finished drinking. For them to be able to dilute, we just saw him urinating and defecating at the same time. It's a process of digesting take place after eating quite a lot. And then there is just more space. So every time there's a defecation, it's whole piles of dung. Probably anything above 8 kilograms, sometimes 7 kilograms. It's a whole bunch of poop at the one time. And they do this continuously, whole day, defecate and eat all the time. So they have a lot of time to spend feeding than resting. We just saw him there freeze, and it was all about just taking it easy. And now he's just done with all of the thinking where he's going to go. So feeding for them, day and the night, these animals feed. There's no specific time like other animals do. So these, even a rhino, is the same. And then, of course, with the hippo, they can feed during the day. When it's cooler, they come out for that, if it's a grass available close to the lake. But then these animals, specifically, they eat night and day. So I'm probably going to move from this last position here. And let me take you to another live station.
Well, we're still with our buffalo, who are now actually up and moving again. They're on a steady pace straight towards sort of Sydney's Dam area. And it's a pity that we've just lost a little bit of light, because the sky itself was really, really beautiful. Some nice colors, but it's just too dark, especially with something like buffalo, to balance the light for the camera, to be able to actually expose them nicely. So we're in infrared instead. But they slowly but surely, like I say, are moving their way across in front of us. They literally are heading straight towards water. I'm pretty sure they'll be there within the next 20 minutes. They should be having a good drink, which for a herd like this, the size of that dam will be absolutely perfect. They should do really, really nicely there. They'll be able to all line up and everyone will get a nice clean bit of water, which is often a challenge for big herds like this. They often find these smaller little wallows and kind of muddy pits, and half the herd gets and the other half doesn't, and it's just not very, very easy for them when it's like that. So I'm sure they'll be happy to find a big dam. You can see they're still not that sure of us, even though we've spent probably over an hour now with them. They're still a little bit like, gotta just make sure of this thing that's parked here. The other thing is that the wind is now blowing from our back straight to them, and so maybe there's a bit of a scent drifting on the air of the vehicle and people, and that's potentially why they're a little bit more nervous. But I thought they were going to lie up on this open clearing. I thought this is where they were going to settle. As you can see, they're actually moving faster than ever, heading in that direction. So must be thirsty, which is fair enough. It's been a very, very warm day, that's for sure. I'm so glad though that we actually spent some time with these guys. They're an animal that we don't spend all that much time with, so it's always nice to hang around. All right, we're going to disappear from them. We're going to go try to see if we can find something else and see what else is lurking under the cover of darkness.
What a day it has been. A jackal just coming to check the watering hole here. It is a black-backed jackal just behind those ducks there. He looks like he's looking for something to nibble on there. Just checking what he's smelling there. Can't really see what exactly it is. Marking right on top of it. Wasn't actually looking for something to nibble on. Just making sure this is mine. Just showing territory there. And he's off from the watering hole. Obviously, drinking, and the night has begun for them. I mean, these animals would go in search for food. This is about the right time where temperatures start dropping. So off he goes for the journey of the night. Beautiful sunset. Oh, they're there to end our little series for today. Beautiful Kalahari sun.
Welcome back to andBeyond and Ngala, and once again, what a beautiful scene. I've kind of just done a little loop around. That Ross male was walking straight towards this direction. It wasn't very difficult to find because they were very close. And then with all of them roaring, it was quite easy to find actually. So I'm hanging here waiting for that other Ross male to come in and join the scene here. I'm sure when he does, there'll be a big reunion. And if we're very lucky in the next 5 minutes, this whole pride will roar. Listen, it's only a few members of the Birmingham Pride. But that roaring with all of these members is a serious intimidation factor. If those other lions hear that and they still proceed to come into this territory and aggravate the situation, then they must be meaning some serious business. There's that other Ross male. This morning he was almost shunning his brother and pushing him out, but I'm sure this afternoon or this evening, if he does come through, which it seemed like he was, they'll have a real reunion and they'll work together this evening, long into the night. They've probably got a long night of hard work ahead of them. Just conserving as much of their energy as possible. Sibusiso, how many hours do lions sleep for? Now, it's a very tricky question to answer accurately because every day will be so different. If you read in books, they'll say they normally sleep for about 20 hours in a 24-hour period. However, that gets disproven all the time. And sometimes they'll sleep for 10 hours in a day, sometimes 20 hours, sometimes 22 hours. So it's an impossible question to answer accurately. Books say about 20 hours in a 24-hour period. So that means they're only active, according to the books, for 4 hours in that period. However, when hunting and on cool days, they'll be active for much longer than that. Come on, just need that other Ross male to appear. Keeping my eyes peeled in front of the vehicle here. Be interesting to see if he doesn't start to roar as well. Look, there's a big get up, stretch, tail flick. Yogeshwar, do they have any problems with that big mane while hunting? No, not really while hunting. They'll always try their best to get as close to the animal that they're hunting as possible. They use the bush around them to conceal them and in a form of camouflage, and that mane won't really stick out. Oh, one of them. Let's see if everybody else joins in here. That'll give give that other Ross male who's making his way here a really good idea of exactly where they were. Although I'm sure he knows already if I was able to find them so easily, he'll be able to. Oh, the male's heads up. Look at the male. You see what he's doing with his head? Is he going to yawn or is he going to roar? Time's running out for us here, guys. Buzz enough. Do I think a pride this big will separate in future? Let me just keep quiet for a moment. Wasn't that insane? That other male is 30 meters away. But how is that for power and strength? Buzz enough, going back to your question very quickly. A pride getting this big, yes, there is a chance. This pride's currently sitting at about 18 members, and trying to feed 18 members is incredibly difficult. So they may at one point very likely split up. They've done that before. They got to about 28 members about 4 or 5 years ago, and they split up. A couple of the females might decide to disappear and kind of start their own pride in a different area, find a new territory. Let's see, I'm going to wait here for a moment. This other Ross male might pop out the bushes in front of us. What a beautiful scene, huh? And what an incredible afternoon. These Birmingham Pride members are all getting up and starting to move. It is that time of day. They're actually moving away from those noises that they heard. Look at that white male sticking out, or female, sorry. But what a special afternoon. From lions to leopards, elephants to lions roaring. What a magnificent afternoon. I'm so glad it worked out. I was a bit worried with our time constraint, but it all worked out. I look very forward to seeing you guys all tomorrow morning. Potentially, let's go and try and track these males and see if they come into a conflict.
Connectedness with the ecosystem shows us that we are too. Join me on my next adventure with WildEarth in the African wild on channel 183 DSTV.
This program features live